thank you everyone for attending the regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all special taxing districts. This is the February the 1st, 2021, 9 a.m. meeting. And board members will attend either in person or by telephone or remotely via electronic conferencing. We do want to acknowledge that Supervisor Pancrasi is on the phone. Are you there?
Good morning.
Morning. So this is a meeting, this is a call to order. The first item in the agenda will be Pledge of Allegiance. Will everybody please stand up and follow us? Supervisor Lyons, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone, thank you. The first item in the agenda is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Anyone who's concerned about COVID-19 and does not want to be put into an open setting can submit an email, call to the public statement at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. This email forms of public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read aloud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Desiree, did we get any emails? No. Right? So I'm going to keep the call to the public section open during the meeting so that anyone that arrives late or has a comment that is general in nature can have the opportunity to do so. And we're moving on to our next item, which is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and issue proclamations and may pronounce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal actions will be taken. First item in the agenda is a presentation of a Yuma County Quarterly Safety Excellence Award by the County Administrator, Susan Thorpe.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. This morning, I'm pleased to recognize the nominees for Yuma County Safety Excellence Award for the second quarter of the fiscal year, which includes October through December 2020. This award recognizes county employees who consistently promote safety in the workplace. Any employee can nominate another employee for the Safety Excellence Award. All nominations are screened for eligibility and a committee selects the winner for the quarter. Nominees are recognized in our U-Count newsletter. They receive a certificate of achievement, a safety challenge coin, and a commemorative safety mug. Nominees are also eligible for the annual Safety Excellence Award in conjunction with our employee appreciation ceremony. The winner of this quarterly Excellence Award receives $100, and the annual award winner receives $250 and a plaque. For this quarter, we're excited to have two nominees to be recognized. They are Jesus Aguilar in Public Works and Robert Torres in Adult Probation. First, I'd like to ask Jesus Aguilar to join me at the podium to be recognized. Beside me, okay, so we can talk about you. Okay. Jesus is the safety specialist under Phil in Public Works. He's been in this position for 3 months and with Yuma County for 1 year. Jesus is committed to safety for his coworkers. This is shown by his creation of COVID-19 sanitation stations and programs for fleet vehicles and in the Public Works facilities. He assisted both the gravel plant supervisor and solid waste supervisor with training and equipment for their employees. Jesus has conducted walkthroughs and tailgate sessions with mechanics about heat exposure and shop safety. He worked with the Techna shop to enhance a safe working environment, and he worked with solid waste to provide quality shade and cooling for employees. He has also ensured the safe personnel courses are given to keep up with quarterly training for all Public Works employees. Thank you, Jesus.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite Robert Torres to join me at the podium to be recognized. Robert is a community restitution program supervisor for adult probation. He's served in this position for over 10 years and has been with Yuma County for over 26 years. Robert Torres is always looking for new ways and new ideas to promote a safe workplace. As an example, Robert took the initiative to have panic buttons installed on the first floor of adult probation to ensure staff safety, and he trained staff on emergency procedures for the panic buttons. Due to COVID-19 restrictions, adult probation was unable to conduct its normal annual fire drill. Robert took the initiative to provide a fire drill tabletop discussion with the entire staff to ensure that they knew what to do in case of an emergency evacuation. A total of 72 staff reviewed the fire safety protocol and emergency policy and were provided fire drill training. Thank you, Robert. What's really notable about these nominations is that we have a very new employee with 1 year of service and a long-tenured employee with more than 26 years of service to Yuma County. Both have demonstrated their initiative, dedication, and enthusiasm for the safety and security of their coworkers, departments, and the public. And it's always exciting to share these nominations with you. I want to thank and commend our nominees for their dedication to safety. We have such deserving nominees, it's always hard to tell who is going to be the winner. Now, I'm pleased to announce our Safety Excellence Award recipient for the second quarter. Please join me in congratulating Robert Torres. Robert, here is your $100 check, and here is your certificate as the winner. If you would please, so we can get a photo of you here at the podium.
Well, who's going to take it?
I'll take it.
Oh,
Hold on. Here she comes. We got
Somebody? All
we
right.
got somebody. Barbara.
All right.
It's just that she was surprised by the selection. Wrinkle your forehead. That's what the new smile looks like.
thank you so much.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you, Yuma County, for the opportunity to keep everybody safe.
Yeah. Make sure you don't spend it all in one place, okay? Spread it around. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And we'll move on the agenda to the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Our Office of Emergency Management helped to provide another free saliva testing clinic held at Desert View Academy. County buildings lit the night sky in remembrance and solidarity of all those who have lost loved ones to COVID-19. And celebrating 100 years of service, the Yuma County Library District launches their Centennial webpage. These stories and more, this is your County Line. With the Moderna vaccine now present and being distributed in Yuma County, COVID-19 testing may not seem as important as it once was, but that is far from the truth. On Saturday, January 30th, the Yuma County Office of Emergency Management partnered with Arizona State University to hold a COVID-19 saliva testing event at Desert View Academy. Pre-registered participants arrived on site and were able to provide a saliva sample from the comfort of their car.
We're out here today hoping we get at least 500 community members to come out and get tested. As you know, vaccinations are coming, but they're coming very slowly. So testing is still an important tool and an important mitigating factor to continue to stop the spread of COVID-19.
These tests help to provide citizens with a simple, easy, and non-invasive way to receive a test, while also helping to provide health officials with a snapshot of the current infection rate in our county. This COVID-19 testing event was free and was used to evaluate as many Yuma County residents as possible. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or you can sign up for all the latest news by visiting our COVID update page at yumacountyaz.gov. Citizens all across the nation have been affected by the pandemic, and many families have lost loved ones. On Tuesday, January 19th, in remembrance and solidarity, many Yuma County buildings were shining extra bright.
Chairman Tony Reyes wanted to join the National Memorial for COVID Victims as a way to symbolically remember and honor the 400,000 Americans who have died from COVID-19, including more than 600 from Yuma County, as a way to show solidarity and sympathy and condolences for their families.
County buildings such as the County Administration Building, the Historic Courthouse, the Yuma County Justice Center, and all Yuma County libraries participated and illuminated their buildings for the entirety of the night. County buildings have reverted back to their regular light schedule. Our thoughts remain with those mourning the loss of loved ones to COVID-19. As we mentioned on the last county line, the Heritage Library will turn 100 years old on February 24th, and the Yuma County Library District will celebrate 100 years of public library service. The Yuma County Library District will be launching their Centennial webpage on February 1st. By heading to yumalibrary.org/100 years, you'll have access to a full history that includes a complete narrative with some historic photos. Some of the photos displayed date back as early as 1915. Also included is a timeline with user-friendly tabs, allowing you to click your way through decades of our library district's past. We invite you to join in on the Library District's Centennial celebration. For more information and ways to participate, visit their webpage at yumalibrary.org.
Hi, I'm Mary, and this is your Health Watch. WIC is a free nutrition and breastfeeding program serving all of Yuma County. WIC is for infants, children up to 5 years old, pregnant women, breastfeeding women until their infant's first birthday, and women whose pregnancy ended 6 months ago. WIC's free service saves you money, provides nutritious food, breastfeeding support including loaned breast pumps, and referrals to other healthcare and social services. WIC is open during the pandemic and continues to provide contact-free services in the comfort of your home via phone or video conferencing. Food benefits that you can redeem at the grocery store are loaded remotely on an e-WIC card that we can mail to you. To qualify, enroll, or renew your WIC services, please call 928-317-4500. Thank you in advance for being part of the Yuma County WIC program. This is all for now. Stay healthy, Yuma.
As you've seen before, we like to take a moment each quarter to recognize an employee who has gone above and beyond when it comes to safety. Robert Torres is the Community Restitution Program Supervisor with our Adult Probation Department. With over 10 years serving in his current position and over 26 years with Yuma County, Robert shows no signs of safety complacency. Robert took the initiative and had panic buttons installed on the first floor and trained staff on the emergency procedures, ensuring their safety. While the department was unable to conduct their annual fire drill due to COVID-19 restrictions, he provided a fire drill tabletop discussion for his entire staff. With Robert's presence, staff feel safe in their workplace, and is why Robert Torres is the Safety Excellence Award recipient for Yuma County this quarter. Before we head out, there are some important dates coming up that you might want to know about. On February 1st, the County Treasurer will hold the online tax lien sale, which will only be open for parcel viewing, new bidder registration, and bidding. On February 17th, the online tax lien sale will open to the public for the purchase of tax lien certificates. Also a reminder to our viewers that the next regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors will be held on Wednesday, February 17th. That's because Monday the 15th is President's Day, and offices will be closed in observance. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'd like to leave you with a message from Yuma County employee Anthony Brookins, telling us why he loves working for Yuma County. We'll see you next time.
My name is Anthony Brookins. I've been employed with Yuma County for 7 years. My title is Senior Equipment Operator. Operating a lot of this heavy equipment, it's like an adrenaline to me. And definitely going out there and helping the public. Advancements, opportunities to move up means a lot to me and a lot to my children. It's a safe place, fun place. At the end of the day, you look back and you got a job for tomorrow.
Okay, I think that was a good-looking crew you saw there with masks. Sometimes masks can improve things. This is probably one of those. You know,
Not gonna go there.
that was a good-looking crew there. Anyway, I know, I'm sorry, Supervisor Lyons, I did not realize you had an appointment to make, and I moved right through that. So if you have an appointment to make, go ahead and make it.
I'd like to reappoint Rosalie Lyons to the Board of Adjustments. She's previously been appointed by Supervisor McLeod.
All right. Okay, so let the record reflect that. I mean, we don't need to take legal action on that. It's an appointment that the member can make on his own. All right, thank you, Mr. Lyons. We'll move on then to the next item, which is a proclamation, which again, you will be doing. So this is a proclamation proclaiming the year 2021 as the year of the library in Yuma County. And it's not just to honor libraries throughout, but it's also specifically to honor the library's 100th anniversary. I know we have someone here from the public library system, but would you please do us the honor?
Yes. Whereas with a grant of $10,000 from the Andrew Carnegie Foundation, a designation of land at 4th Avenue and 3rd Street, and local donations of money and reading material, the Yuma Carnegie Library opened on February 24th, 1921. And from these modest beginnings, branch libraries were established in Somerton, Welton, the Foothills, San Luis, Roll, Dayton. And Yuma voters supported bond elections in 1948 and in 1965 to enlarge and improve the library, and in 2005 approved a bond to build 4 new libraries, including a new main library, expand 2 libraries, and add technological enhancements. And over the years, the library district has offered programs for all ages, outreach services, literacy initiatives, job seeker and small business resources, expanding information services, computer training, internet access, and other means of community support and enrichment. The Yuma County Library District continues to serve the people of Yuma County as your center for information, community enrichment, recreational reading, and lifelong learning. Now therefore I, Marco Antonio Reyes, Chairman of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors, proclaim 2021 as the year of the library in honor of its 100th anniversary and extend sincere gratitude to its trustees, staff, and volunteers, past and present, for their accomplishments, commitment, and dedication to Yuma County and its residents.
I always wanted to have him say aye, Tony Reyes. So I did that. They were awesome. Let's go up there and give it them. I mean, we haven't done this in a while, but if we don't have Lynn with us here, we may be able to not break that rule of not too many people.
Oh, thanks, guys.
So,
You forgot she was listening in. We don't get you down here very often.
it's good when they can't recognize. In my wallet, it was just a tingling feeling.
No money.
Oh, you can take that. Sorry. I was gonna take it back. Thank you. Okay.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, I just want to say thank you for your support. The Friends of the Library and the Library Foundation have been a huge support of the library. Like Sarah mentioned, on the county line today opens up our timeline of events, so I hope you will check that out. We're also going to leave with Desiree a flyer for you all that tells you about what we have planned. We've planned this for 2 years to have the celebration, and unfortunately, a lot of it will be online. We also have some coloring sheets, so if you have kids or grandkids, feel free to take them. But thank you so much for your support.
Well, we're too young to have kids or grandkids, but we appreciate that. Yeah, I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And moving on the agenda, the next item is 4, Public Works presentation regarding the Public Works Department Leadership Education Advancement Program and recognition of recent graduates. All right. There's no PowerPoint presentation?
No PowerPoint.
Oh, well, then this is very pleasurable.
Wow. No death by PowerPoint.
Thanks, Josh.
I see you saving trees too, eh? Two-sided presentation.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Josh Scott, Public Works Director. So my first year or so with Public Works, I noticed we were having difficulty recruiting internally for promotional opportunities, and dug into that a little bit and found there were several reasons for that after talking with staff. Some were hesitant to take that next step. Maybe they thought they lacked the soft skills required of a supervisory position. Some just lacked the confidence. And some weren't making it through the screening process. They weren't able to highlight maybe some of the supervisory skills that they have. So the management team within Public Works got together, talked about that issue and how we might address it. Then we started some conversations with Human Resources. And what was the result of that was our LEAP program. So we tried to fill that need of transitioning employees from being an employee to a supervisor, giving them a good foundation to work with, help build their confidence, and ultimately develop leadership within our ranks and promote from within. And obviously that's also an important part of our succession planning process. So what you see is the program document, but this is really probably once we kind of got the idea, working with Felicia and her staff in HR, who were huge champions of this, and through a partnership with them, over the course of about a year, we developed this LEAP program, the Leadership Education Advancement Program. So the program in a nutshell, we take up to 6 employees per year. It's a year-long journey for these employees. And there's a process to apply, and there's certain criteria they have to meet, but one of the things is an essay they have to write why they want to participate in this program, what they hope to do with the knowledge they gain. And we look at those applications, we rank them, and we take the top 5 or 6 out of that. And the program focuses on 4 learning objectives you'll see in the packet there. Supervisor roles and responsibilities, leadership, communication, and conflict management. Those are the basic skills that most supervisors are going to need to kind of hit the ground running and be successful. So once accepted to the LEAP program, students work on developing those skills, and there's several components to that. First is the classroom experience, and all that training in there equates to about 60 hours in the classroom. Some of the classes are through the normal HR training calendar. Some are tailored just for the LEAP program students. Then we have our roundtable discussions, and those are more informal, but they're facilitated by a member of the Public Works management team. And we talk about what the students are learning and the practical application of that knowledge. We share maybe some of our past experiences and issues, maybe some of us in the management team had to learn the hard way along the way. So we recently graduated our first class back in December. They gave their final presentation. We had 5 go through that initial class, and I'd like to recognize them today. And those students were Gary Eiton, an equipment operator, Eric Rodriguez, another equipment operator, Nicole Troy, our fleet coordinator, and then with me 2 of those graduates, Leo Ruiz, who recently was promoted to a traffic signal technician, and Jesus Valenzuela, who was recently promoted to a project lead worker position. So hopefully that's what they learned through that process is paying off as they step into these supervisory positions. They've at least got some base knowledge and some support. I forgot to mention, as part of the program also, there's a mentorship piece. So there's one-on-one discussions and mentorship with a management team member. So these employees are encouraged to come in, ask questions. we share some of our experiences with them, again, on certain situations we might have dealt with in the past, and again, the hopes of making them successful in the future. So, with that, I'd like to see if Leo and Jesus maybe want to say a few words about their experience in the program and kind of what they learned along the way.
You getting points for this, or you graduate?
Good morning, everyone. For me, the program, it was a great experience. Just gives us the tools necessary so we can be leaders in our organization. And that's what I took the most from this program, is how it gives us the tools to empower our employees, our coworkers. Not only being a supervisor, but you can be a leader at any position in your organization. You know, we step up, we take the responsibility and the initiative. That's what it's all about, and encourage people to do more. And then, you know, and at the end, you know, the vision is to have a company of leaders to where everybody understands what we need to be doing out there, understands our goals, our plan, our agenda, so we can all work together, work as a team to complete that vision. That's what it was for me. And the open discussions and getting exposed to the mentoring program, I mean, that was a first for me. So usually, instead of just coming in, just doing your work, and just going about your day, now we have a different vision to where we can understand, you know, pause, take a moment to kind of see where we're heading and where we need to be, and look at the details so we can work together towards that goal. That's what I took from the program. For me, it was a great experience.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, my experience from this program, I mean, it was a long process. It was a year, you know, and from this program, you know, you look at everything in a different perspective, you know, how managing, you know, looking for that leadership style, because everybody has a different way of leading within their organization, you know, with the employees, how to, you know, deal with conflict and how to, you know, help them out, you know. And this program, I mean, it's helped me, and, you know, like how Josh was saying, you know, I have been promoted, you know, within this program. It's helped me, you know, how to go in and, you know, go to, you know, to meetings, and, you know, to you know, understand, you know, what you need to work on with other employees, and, you know, and to help them out. But, I mean, yeah, this program, you know, it's a really good program, and it's a program that should be continued, you know, yearly, you know, to find those leaders that, you know, that need that, you know, a little push to help them, you know, get promoted within their organization. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Well, before you start again, we just want to congratulate you guys, because you know, these are difficult times, and just taking time aside from the job you actually do to make sure you graduate from a program like this is really important. It is more than leadership. It is a way that it's a culture, basically. It's a culture that we like to have instilled in all departments. And obviously, having you guys go through it and be successful at it just points the way to other people who may be a little leery of the time investment, and, you know, seeing the results. I think people would follow that much better than any kind of, you know, academic presentation that you make. If you can point to success from the same people that you're trying to better, it's much more it gets a much more enthusiastic response and follow up.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so we just kicked off our second LEAP class. We've got 5 students this year as well, and we're going to incorporate this last class into some of those roundtable discussions. So they'll be able to talk about their experience, offer encouragement, and also, you know, it's one thing to hear it from me, but from a fellow supervisor, especially that frontline supervisor, to hear the practical application of some of this knowledge that they gain throughout the process. So I do want to thank Felicia and her staff. Like I said, HR was a huge champion in this, and we couldn't have done it without them. In fact, their trainer was made an honorary public works employee at one point. She spent so much time over there with our staff. And also thank Susan for her support on this endeavor, because it is a dedication of time and resources to go.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor
I just
Simmons.
want to say congratulations to all five, also in the class that graduated, and thank Josh for putting something like this together and pushing it forward, because it doesn't do anything but enhance our own employees, and just want to say thank you for doing it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It's really up to the employees. We can give them the knowledge and the tools, but they need to put it into action, and their success is ultimately up to them. But the thought being, even if they don't get a supervisory position within Public Works, maybe they've got the knowledge to take another position within the county, and we want to hang on to those employees as best we can and recruit from within.
And there's always a risk that you train people and they leave. But if you make the environment better, you can keep them. I know that when we make an employee more valuable, there's always that risk. But I think the risk is worth taking. I mean, the idea is to improve the life, the ability that an individual has to do even a better job and to lead other people. So wherever they go, they're going to be much more valuable. And if they stay with us, which is what I hope, they're going to make sure that the quality overall increases and the quality of staff that you have to utilize to do your job. So it's a win-win situation for them and for us.
I hope so.
Okay, well, thank you. This is not a salary discussion, is it?
It is not. No, sir.
Oh, come later. No. All right. Thank you guys for coming over. There's a bunch of potholes in Avenue. All right, we're gonna move on now. We're gonna let them go back to work, because every time it rains in Yuma County, we notice when we drive. That's why Southern California is the way it is, right? Anyway, we're gonna go on to the consent calendar. Lynn, are you there?
Yes, Tony, I'm here.
I can barely hear her.
Yeah, I know, I can barely hear her too, but anyway, as long as you understand she's there. Okay, well, we're gonna move on to the consent calendar, and the following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. There are, how many? 10 items for approval. I was going to pull out one of the items for the purchase items. I'll do number 8 just to make a point. So, anybody wants to pull anything else? There's a gentleman here from Southwest Gas, but we put him in the consent agenda and move it right through.
7 and 8 are the same.
7 and 8?
Yeah.
All right, 7 and 8. Anything else? If not, then I'll entertain a motion for approval as presented.
So moved.
All right, there was a
I'll second-
motion
I'll
and a
second it.
second. All right, okay, guys. Okay, there's a motion from Supervisor Simmons and a second from Supervisor Lyons to approve the consent calendar, items 1 through 10, with the exception of 7 and 8. Well, there's no discussion on those. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I'm moving
Aye.
7. Yeah, okay. I'm moving 7 and 8 together, just simply because I think they deal with the same matter at hand. Item number 7 is authorize the Public Works Director to purchase 6 Malibu sedans, 4 new Transverse SUVs, 2 new Silverado pickups, and 3 new Trax SUVs from Fisher Chevrolet in an amount not to exceed $374,000. And number 8 is authorize the Public Works Director to purchase 3 new F-250 utility body trucks and 1 new F-150 pickup from Alexander Ford in an amount not to exceed $183,000. The reason I brought it up is probably the same reason that Supervisor Lyons brought them up. I don't know what you guys did to make sure that the local dealers and suppliers sort of understood the process to be able to be successful in their bidding process for us to purchase vehicles locally. Because certainly we like that to happen, but we struggle with the fact that by statute, we have very little leeway in what we can do. So whatever you guys did to be able to make them come up to a situation where they're the winners of this bidding process, we appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think it takes a lot of the heat that we get from the local here, from the local merchants here, who we understand they're in a tight spot, and we like to do as much as possible to help them out. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to you for being able to work that out so that they can be successful. Anything else?
No, just wanted to commend this action and recognize that we are purchasing locally as much as possible, and thank you for making that happen.
Would you make that motion to approve the item?
I'll make the motion to approve 7 and 8.
Second. And a motion to approve the purchasing of these vehicles as presented in items 7 and 8. Lynn, you want to say anything? Huh. Anyway, she liked it. So
Josh got off
all
easy
those
on
in
this
favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Lynn said aye. Yeah, just, probably needed a bathroom break and we got her in the morning. All right, so everything on the consent item has been approved, and we do want to acknowledge the presence of a representative from Southwest Gas here. I noticed that the attorney, as soon as he got tailed out of here, so I suppose he needed to do something back at the office. So, did somebody cut off?
That's probably Lynn.
All right, we're going to move on to discussion and action items. The board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first item is county administration, public services, emergency management, discussion and possible action regarding COVID-19 updates and activities. I was asked to first, bring Tony and bring Tony Badia and emergency management services to discuss the events of this weekend, where I guess we call it the saliva testing event.
Yes, sir. Chairman Reyes, Vice Chairman Cortes, and members of the board. Tony Badia, Director of Emergency Management here. This Saturday, we held a saliva testing event in partnership with ASU. We had volunteers from the Red Cross, we had volunteers from our CERT program, and we had National Guard assets there. Desert View Academy graciously provided us their facility to be able to operate there. And I'm happy to report we had 408 people go through and get saliva tested. So it was steady. We were prepared from 400 to 500 was our goal, and we've met that goal. Some of the other things that emergency management has been doing, just to kind of get you up to speed, we've been coordinating with community programs. We're working on a resource list, and that should be forthcoming hopefully by the end of the week. We have a draft already in place. We've been assisting public health with offloading of PPE as it comes in. We continue to support with equipment and supplies to emergency management events and to public health events as needed. Coordinated with Arizona Department of Emergency Management, providing the request for the Army Reservists to come to YMC and provide the resources there. And they also asked for an extension, which was granted, I believe. We continue to support National Guard requests for community events. I'm happy to report that through AZDMA's consistent request that and I'm sure the other states were doing the same thing, the National Guard has been extended until the end of September for being able to provide assets for the COVID-19 response. I do meet on Wednesdays with the Arizona Department of Emergency Management, emergency managers, tribal and county managers, and then we also have on the phone the Arizona Department of Health Services. So we're able to pass on information, and we advocate the need for additional vaccines. We also advocate the need for our communities, because we are on the southern border, for additional vaccines, additional tests, and to consider our winter visitor population. We do continue to provide meetings on a Monday with all the southern borders, pretty much the same thing. We're meeting with all the county managers on the southern border. Some of the other things we're doing is we advocate for training with Louisiana State University on the COVID-19 biological course. We provided that asset. It was virtual. We continue to be a liaison with the first responders, and let's see. Oh, and then I coordinate with Gil on the AZDMA FEMA reimbursement process or grant opportunities that are out there. And then administrative stuff, we're just attending our essential requirements, grant management training, volunteer management, our budget we just finished the Friday, continuing to update our plans and continue to have meetings with our community resources. So other than that, do you have any questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Let me begin by, again, thanking you for taking the lead in doing some of these things. And when I read your presentation here, I couldn't help but notice the inconsistency in the charging. The inconsistency in paying for the test. some of these locations are free, no matter what.
Right.
Other ones say that if you have insurance, it's free, but if you don't, like the hospital will charge you $125. Now, people who are gonna take the test need to know, what they're facing and not be surprised by going out somewhere and saying, oh, I'm here to test, and then they'll tell her, well, it's $75, if you don't have insurance. That needs to be a little more clear. And I see that there's plenty of places to get tested nowadays, but I also see that some of them require a doctor's appointment. Some of them don't require a doctor's appointment. Some of them are free, no matter what, if you don't have insurance or not. And some of the other ones will say, one says 161 without insurance. The other one, the hospital says 125 without insurance. The San Luis Walk Clinic, no appointments available, drive-up testing, and it would be, one says doctors will determine whether it's rapid or, days, lab days. Some of them don't have any information about what it will cost. Like, for example, if you go to San Francis of Assisi in Yuma, they're open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week, but it doesn't have any information whether you need to bring an insurance card or whether it's a doctor's appointment or whether it's just walk in. We need to start getting that information consistently out so people don't go and are surprised by having a charge to their test. So that's again, the drives are important and the purpose is really important. But the fact that it's so different everywhere you go makes it a little difficult to tell people, well, go here, because if you tell them to go there, they don't have insurance and they have to pay. Then they end up dealing with the situation, they're in line, and then they'll get the test, and somebody has to be responsible. And it seems to me, I don't understand why the inconsistency. I thought that the test was free from the federal government. So this must be like an administrative cost that they tag on to do it. Or I really don't understand that.
That's my understanding. A lot of these, like especially the rapid tests and stuff, are being provided to some of these organizations, and Diana probably can speak more in depth on that. But I think a lot of them are charging administrative fees, and we are trying to get what information's out there, what charges are out there. A lot of times they say, if you have insurance, we want your information. If you don't have insurance, it's free. So I don't know if they're charging the insurances or not. That's really the organizations.
If you're providing them insurance information, it is 99% probably certain they're going to charge someone. And I understand some of these organizations are not like clinics, like Pinnacle West. Some of them sound neck scared. Some of them sound like they're just what do you call those walk-in clinics that are, they could be private, not nonprofits. But what my concern is, okay, if this tests are being provided to them for free, I can understand an administrative cost. I just don't see why. Well, I can see that. I mean, I'm surprised the hospital has a lower fee than other people, because that's not what, the hospital has a higher fee for everything.
That list is a living document, and we are continuing trying to update it. The two locations you talked about, the one at St. Francis and the one out at St. Lumen's Church, we identified those a couple weeks ago. Somebody was driving by and said, hey, they're doing testing out there. We called both locations, and they couldn't give us any information, so we had to physically go out there and get that information from them. But I'll try to find out. As far as I know, those are both the same type of system. They're free for those who don't have insurance, and then they want the insurance information. But I'll try to get that information for you.
But Tony, just find out for me why they're so inconsistent. Why do people charge and why do people don't? And I guess an administrative fee is something, but it doesn't sound like that. It sounds like, $50 send out testing, $75 rapid testing.
Yeah.
$125 if you don't have, $161 if you don't have insurance. That's really weird.
I think some of those are private businesses or businesses, so they're not into that. Some of those are, and Diana probably can talk more about it. They're probably funded by the ones that aren't charging, or one just for insurance information are probably getting some type of federal grant or getting a state grant to provide those, those opportunities.
Maybe that's a question we need to ask Diane about the cost. And it's not just that. We're probably going to get into the vaccine, if it costs or if it's free, or who does it, who doesn't. But, and I understand what you're saying when you say this is a living document. But if we're going to be the ones providing the information, let's try to be, look, if there's a place where people can get it for free, we shouldn't be sending them to the hospital. I mean, the hospital is going to charge you, if you don't have insurance, $125. Why should we be sending them to the hospital? Other than the hospital may have the testing available, and I don't want to talk bad about the hospital. Yes, Susan.
So this information that you've got on this sheet is also published in the update every day at 3 p.m. So we'll keep it updated. And what we'll want to do is Tony can reach out to all of them and identify information related to insurance or no insurance for all these providers. That way, everybody can make an informed decision about where they want to go. But it is included at 3 p.m. every day, every weekday.
No, I think the idea of making it consistent, in other words, everybody, in every provider, there should be something below that says testing, free testing, or insurance covered, or, you pay so much. Because that way you can make that decision before you go there and you're surprised by the fact that you're there and you didn't know they were going to charge you if you didn't have insurance. Seems to me most people that I know assume that the testing is free for some not for some reason, because it is mostly free. So they may assume that, it's free, even if you don't have insurance. And I really wouldn't like that not having insurance to be a hurdle for some people or something that deters them from getting tested. So it'd be good for them to find out you can get it done for free at this clinic, at this location, at this location. It'd be nice for us to be able to provide that information, I think.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I just to, it's a comment, but, since this pandemic started, San Luis Walking Clinic has been doing it for free since they started. And they were the only ones that were doing it, and plus the county when they were doing the blitz. But the rest of them, because San Luis Walking Clinic is not open during the week, the rest of them get them on the weekend. I one time I went to that next care. I left. I was there for 2 hours in line. So I left. I wasn't gonna be there, 5 hours waiting, and that was not in the vehicle, just to go in. So, and I didn't know they charged us. If I would have seen that, I would have.
You wouldn't have waited 2 hours.
Yeah, I would have waited. I would have waited till Monday. But it's just the
inconsistency.
The inconsistency. But San Luis Walking Clinic has been doing it since they started back in, when we started testing for free, and in other places too.
Yeah.
But just
what surprises me, and I don't want to just, go so much to the Yuma Regional Medical Center, but when they put in 25% discount for not having insurance, and 10% discount is paid within 30 days, that's really focuses on the billing section of it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of the testing, you have to focus on what they're going to charge you.
Nonprofit, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the hospital's a nonprofit, but not very much. All right, well, let's leave that. I may end up in the hospital in the next few days, so I'm not going to go further than that. All right, thank you, Tony. Now, the health department, come up and receive, I hope, some compliments out of the thankless job you get to do now.
Good morning.
Yeah, that has changed quite a bit since you first started.
Yeah.
You used to walk up to the podium and be like, yeah. Now you walk up to the podium. What is coming next? No, let me, before we begin, to tell you. Most of us are aware of some problem or another, either with the partners or with this or with that. And I don't want that to take away from the fact that you're in a situation that you almost can't win. You please one side of the aisle and the other side of the aisle gets upset. You try to widen the reach of the health department and we run into phone problems and then appointment problems. And I truly feel that you're doing the best you can under the circumstances, but I want you to know that it's not, I know that the first thing that I got this morning when I came here is comments from some of the board members about some of those problems. And I want to tell you, just be yourself. You've done a great job so far. And I think that the point that I'm making is that we do understand and appreciate it. Being in office, in public office for a few years, give you a better sense of what a difficult job it is to keep everyone happy. And it's just not going to happen. So just, find some inner calm and we'll continue to do this. Somehow we're going to get through this. And you've been you and your team have been great at handling whatever you can handle directly. But some of the people that are out there doing, I mentioned, again, I don't want to mention the hospital again, but I mentioned just how different every one of those people deal with the same issue. There doesn't seem to be much consistency sometimes And I know that the health department's always been consistent in trying the best they can to solve whatever problems in front of them. But you're not, obviously you don't have a magic wand and you don't have a way to solve every problem that comes up. But we appreciate you solving the big ones. So with that, you can start your report.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your support. And I think one of the things that's really important is that communication and having that dialogue. So I'm really fortunate to have the opportunity to come in here and have those discussions with you. And I know as a board, you've been very supportive in advocating when we've had issues in resolving, helping us resolve those issues. So I want to just let you know again that we are going to have vaccination clinics this week. We had a small allocation. We got 2,500 doses, which is small. But what we're doing is we're sharing some of those allocations with our partners. But we will be having a vaccine clinic on Tuesday. That's first dose clinics. We will be having a vaccination for teachers, for educators on Wednesday. Again, educators are part of the prioritized list, so they're within that group. We are trying to assist them in getting through their vaccination process so we can open up our schools. As you know, they've been doing their very best. The cases that we've seen in school have not been transmission in schools. The teachers, the administrators, those school boards have had very difficult jobs. Most of them have stayed open to provide on-site services, critical services that our kids need. So we're helping them move through that. We're hosting a clinic for them on Wednesday. And then we're doing second doses on Thursday, followed by some other second doses pre-scheduled appointments that we had on Friday. That is very similar to what we did last week. And again, just being able to move that vaccine and advocate for additional vaccine. I know all of you have been reaching out to our state partners. What we said was, please show us that, we want to show you that if we get the vaccine, we can move it, we can document it, we can show that we have the infrastructure in place to do that. To date, if you follow the site, we've had about 17,000, almost close to 18,000 doses administered out of our 19 doses. So now that all the data, we had a conversation about the importance of entering data and making sure that you move that vaccine. We don't want that vaccine sitting in freezers. For our clinics, sometimes we have small clinics that are 500, sometimes we have bigger ones, 700, 800. And the commitment there is that as we're sitting there, we're entering that data in there so that at the end of the day, when that clinic is done, it reflects that those shots have been administered in the system, because that is being tracked now at a state level. And it's important. It's important to people to see where the vaccine's going, where it's administered. So we had a follow-up conversation, and right now the latest update shows that we're at 92%. So we right now are the highest in the state. So that was a good conversation to have and to emphasize about the importance of not only pushing vaccine, but entering it into the system. So we are going to go ahead and have those testing events as well. You mentioned about our staff, and I just want to thank my staff because I get to stand in front of you, and I appreciate the words of encouragement and support, but I want to give you a little background of what my staff has done. The health department, as you know, is for the safety net. So we're continuing to provide all those services, taking a lot of creativity. We've moved to Zoom, like for example, our WIC services, our prenatal care services. But since this started, we've given out millions of items of PPE. We've provided support to our rest of our community organizations because that's what we need to do. And just to give you perspective, because you talked about testing kits, last year we distributed over 43,000. When 2020 ended, 43,000 test kits. That includes rapid kits. Our agency is doing contact tracing. We assist when there's staffing issues. We know we have, our medical facility, our hospital. The issue is not space, it's staffing. So when you hear about those deployments, those teams that are coming to assist, that was work that we did with our state health department to make sure that we brought in that very vital support to their agency. The coordination of the surge line, behavioral health support. Again, we're doing the vaccine distribution. We've worked as soon as we became aware that we'd be having to deal with a safe way to open businesses, move forward and keep our operations running, the development of COVID protocol, the sharing, the education, the tabletops. And again, we had rapid testing for our law enforcement, our teachers, and all those people that are frontline responders because we felt that was important. So January, we're still in January, we just ended the month. And so far, we've given out about 21,000 test kits to organizations. So again, that's a vital part of our network of support system to those agencies. We provide those kits free of charge to those agencies. We want to expand testing capacity. again, as we transition to vaccine, you'll see more of that, sharing of resources to those agencies, because that's what we want. We want to make sure that vaccine administration is equitable and accessible. We also want testing opportunities to be accessible and equitable. So again, vaccination clinic this week. Now that we're showing that update and demonstrating that not only can we move that fast, we hope that we can work together to continue to advocate for additional vaccine for Arizona, and especially in our rural areas. From our end, I know my staff is out today. This week they're going to go visit homebound patients who have difficulty coming to these types of vaccinations. So far, the concentration of the vaccination efforts has been in town within the city limits. And again, last week we expanded, and we're looking to do more of that stuff and coordinate clinics, particularly in South County. Again, making sure that that vaccine access is equitable and working with those agencies to ensure those homebound people, or those people that have obviously transportation issues, have access to the vaccine and are not experiencing hardship in that. Again, the vaccine is free. If you as a provider are allowed to charge a small administration fee, and that's if you have insurance, you can bill the insurance, but the vaccine itself is free. If you do not have insurance, those entities are reimbursed through the federal government, so the vaccine should be free and nobody should be turned away for inability to pay. The same is true for testing. There's a mechanism in place, and again, if you need to be tested, that test should be free. There's things like rapid tests where somebody may opt to charge for that, but the standard PCR testing, again, there's mechanisms where that people that don't have insurance can be reimbursed for that. So it's important for people to know that. We will continue to share our testing supplies, advocate for our testing supplies, continue to give out PPE, particularly to our nursing facilities and our congregate settings, because they're required to do testing more often. So again, our role is here to support them and make sure that they have what they need so that they can extend that support to the community. So that is the focus right now.
One thing.
Yes, sir.
I didn't want to be specific about mentioning the fact that the county health district is expanding its reach by actually going to places as opposed to having people come to Yuma, to places like Welton, places like the foothills, which, when I look at the partners we have, we have partners in South County, we have partners in San Luis and Somerton, we have partners in the foothills. If, for example, Yuma Regional Medical Center is the partner that we have that serves the eastern portion, the foothills, then, and if they do it by doctor's appointment or by appointment, there's going to be a problem in getting, I don't know if I want to say the words regular people, because everybody's regular people. But I mean, when it comes down to the fact that we're vaccinating people 65 years and older, we don't vaccinate everyone. We vaccinate people 65 years and older, or teachers, firemen. We have a protocol. We have a list of people who gets vaccinated based on a certain protocol. I know that there's some people with health issues that we may, deviate a little bit if we feel that the situation merits that way. But the fact is that when the county health department decides to reach out and go to different places to do the vaccine, you really, again, to me, showing the fact that you understand that different places move different ways. Culturally speaking, it's different in San Luis than it is in the foothills. In the foothills, we have a lot of winter visitors. We have a different type of population. So I do want to, without getting into a lot of details, just tell you how, at least I am, because I've seen the department, how they handle vaccinations. And I tell you, they're like a machine. I mean, they go through 15, 20 people in 15, 20 minutes. I mean, they can vaccinate a lot of people fast. I think I want to say, I do want to repeat that it isn't the health department's fault that the system that you make appointments on, or that the phone system that we started to use isn't really set up for 226,000 calls, like the hospital found out when they wanted to start making appointments. I mean, we're dealing with an overwhelming need, or at least from the perspective that we have a lot of people 65 years and older. Don't want to look at people here, but we do have a lot of people that are that particular age. So we do have a lot of pent-up demand. And I know there's issues, because Supervisor Lyons brought some issues over the weekend about reporting issues, which is something that I think a long time ago I was taught that, the job isn't done until the report is finished. And, that is something that I think we were so focused on getting the vaccine out and getting those partners to go ahead and get it into people's arms, that sometimes we forget that again, the report needs to be made on time, and it needs to be made in a way that the state will record it. Otherwise, we end up asking them for more, and they end up telling us, well, you have a lot that you haven't used, which is not technically right. It's just, that's the way it's been worked out. But it's a difficult thing because it's a moving target. It's always been a moving target, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better because fortunately, there are more people wanting to get the vaccine than people who don't want it. And that's, as long as that's our problem, that's a good problem to have, although it doesn't feel like it when you get all those calls and those emails that I get, and I know some of you supervisors get, with people complaining they've called 30, 50 times and can't get through. That is what I call the road to hell, which is pay with good intentions, and sometimes it just doesn't work. But we would like to get the message out to the community that everything that we possibly can do through the health department and through the efforts of individual board members, because I know some of them have stepped up individually to assist, it's driven towards getting the biggest number of people in Yuma County, the largest number of people in Yuma County that fits that profile vaccinated. And the county health department, I know, is focused 100% in doing that. Everything else is kind of a distraction, but it's part of doing that job. Okay? Anybody else wants to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask too, I noticed, like I said, we were all notified about the reporting stats end of last week and what the problems were. Is there any way we can get with the state to put a time limit on them? Because I know it affects what we're able to get as far as additional doses when we're not, the other entities that are dispersing it are not doing the proper reporting. Is there any way we could set a time frame to make sure that if these entities aren't doing their proper reporting, the state gets with them and says, okay, fine, you will no longer disseminate this. It'll go to the health department or wherever. But it bothers me when it's out of our control to not, the reporting is totally out of our control with all these other groups. And there's got to be some way it comes back to us. Either way, it comes back to us, even though it's the state. It's still the 5 of us that have to answer for it to our constituents.
Right, and that's a very good point. And I think to that point, Governor Ducey's has signed an executive order, an enhanced surveillance executive order last Tuesday. And so what that required was when everybody signed up to receive vaccine, all of us as the health department and definitely everybody else that's getting vaccine, you signed an onboarding agreement that said, obviously you had to monitor the vaccine, you had to adhere to the tier group, you had to report everything within 24 hours. So that was the agreement that was in place from the very beginning. In order to ensure that what you're saying is happening and that compliance is being done and that monitoring, that enhanced surveillance order was signed on last Tuesday. And it says that if you don't comply with that, if you don't complete the report, if you don't report it on time, you will not be eligible to receive vaccine. Unfortunately, it impacts the county's overall vaccine. But last Friday was the first day that was put into place. And so now if you as an entity aren't keeping it with that, you basically forfeit the vaccine. It's taken back to the state because the state can reallocate it to other places. So now that mechanism's in place. So the accountability now is directly between that provider and the state. Yes, it does impact our allocation overall, so it's important that people do their best to comply and follow the rules. But it's no longer, we will no longer control that. The state will take that vaccine and prevent them from getting additional vaccine.
Chairman.
Sure. Supervisor Lance. Wait, hold on. Are you done?
Well, she was talking about reallocating. They reallocate it to somewhere else in the state. Why can't they reallocate it to the health department per se?
They'll reallocate it to us.
Okay.
But if the majority, if as providers, if I'm working with, let's say, 10 providers, and all of us are out of compliance, and we haven't shown that we've used more than 40% of it, then as a county it impacts us. So that's why we've been reaching out individually, because yes, individually there's that control mechanism between that entity and the state, but overall it's still a reflection on the county. So
right. Yeah, and I before you ask the question, is the state allocating to these providers directly?
No, the allocation comes through us, and we're working with them. But now what happens, for example, let's say, entity A, let's say we allocated 500 vaccines and they're not meeting the requirements. then the state, then they agree to forfeit that. And so then it'll be redirected and then it'll come back to us. But if entity A, B, C, and D are all in non-compliance, then it affects the overall allocation. So next week when I'm allocated, I will be allocated a very small amount. It still comes through me, but now the amount will be significantly smaller until we as a county, can
keep up with the reporting.
So yeah, so there's two pieces. There's a personal, dedicated piece, and then there's the overall impact. So it's one of those where we really need to work together and make sure that all of us are, headed in the same direction, doing the same thing, so that.
All right, Supervisor Long.
So last week, after we learned that our allocation had been reduced, I was working with Diana. We spoke directly with some of the providers, and our percentage was much lower. And to her point, we're now the highest in the state. We're still not at.
It was a reporting issue. It wasn't really a usage issue. We were using it. We just weren't reporting it.
It was not being reported.
Yeah.
So we spoke directly to those providers, and they promised to be in compliance over the weekend. And I'm happy to see that we've had significant improvement.
Well, it goes back to what I said. I think that the county health department can handle most of these situations. It's just that when it comes to you, it comes in as a bunch of problems. And it's just, and it's when it isn't one thing, it's another. But I do, again, want to comment the supervisors that have stepped up. And I know not only Supervisor Lyons, but Supervisor Simmons, Supervisor Porches, and Lynn, I'm sure that she's always involved in everything. And I just want to tell you that even though sometimes it feels like a lot of the heat comes on to us, I don't think it compares to the heat you get and your department gets. So just keep doing your job. You're doing an excellent job, and we're just going to have to all sort of get together and make sure that we have the same purpose in mind. In mind, as I've said it many times, is to get as much vaccine as possible to Yuma County and to put it in people's arms as soon as possible. It is, and the idea is that the only way that this vaccine program is going to work is if we vaccinate a large enough number of people to actually put a stop to this transmission between people. Supervisor Lang.
I just wanted to commend Diana. She has been doing an excellent job asking them to report back. It goes back 3 weeks, but it took some additional phone calls to help them understand that we were losing allocation if they did not report.
One last thing, and I think Supervisor Porches brought this up this morning, and I don't know if he wants to bring it up himself, but I'll do it for you. The fact is, we understand some of the providers are asking people to come in. They're customers, they're clients of the providers, elderly people, whether it's the Sunset Clinic or San Luis Clinic or that, and they're asking their clients to come in as a sort of a doctor's visit more than, you're going to get a doctor's visit, so I guess that's the way they're going to get around having to charge them or whatever. So, but it seems to be a slow way of getting that vaccine out if you only do it by appointment. And in other words, if you don't have a clinic, like a clinic where you're going to vaccinate, if you get 200 doses and you're going to put them in the arms of you patients only, and you do it by appointment, it is too slow. It will take months to get through the process. So we like you to, when you talk to those providers, tell them, look, do that. Get your customers in, get your clients in, check them out. I mean, that's
we had those conversations over the weekend as well.
Check them out, but at the same time, we want you to put that vaccine into people's arms as soon as possible. So if you set aside 20 for your patients and put them on a schedule, that's fine. But if we give you 100, the other 80 have to go into people's arms much faster than that.
Yeah, the clinic model really is what's helping us vaccinate in larger doses. And again, partnering with the different community entities was a way to distribute it throughout the county, so it wouldn't just be the way we have it set up in the health department. We have the system down, but again, we are located, in one location. We don't have satellite offices, so that's why that's important. But yes, we are advocating for that clinic model because we want to make sure people go through it and go through it fast, so we can get more vaccine.
Supervisor Lyons, and I'm gonna let him finish this up.
Okay.
Just because of what we've learned, I just wanted to commend Diana again on emphasizing the fact that the people administering the vaccines must administer within the tiers that they're assigned, and to drive that point home. And because we had learned that many people had received the vaccine out of that tier, which makes the reporting difficult. So want to continue to drive that point home, and as supervisors, encourage people to follow the mandate and only administer within those tiers. Otherwise, we will lose the ability to manage it from the county level. It will be assigned to the state, and we will lose vaccines for the county, which is part of the problem that happened last week.
So there's two issues. One is do it quickly. The other one, do it with the right people, the people who meet that, or at least try to do it with the right people.
And that's more or less what I was going to bring up, because I'm hearing also stories that people other than the 1A and 1B are getting the vaccination, which, you know, that's not the way it's supposed to be set up. And we just need to make sure that that's being tracked, which I'm assuming those are the numbers that are sent to the state, or as far as who's getting it. But like I said, I've heard other places, you know, it just concerns me when it's not the right people getting the vaccine right now. I mean, everybody's going to get their chance, but we've got to look at it. There's a reason it's prioritized.
And look, as an individual who lives in the southern portion of the county and has 13,000 farm workers, of which maybe some of them will be 65 and over, but all of them are considered essential, that is a problem. Because if you go take your vaccines to the fields to vaccinate people, you're not going to find that many 65 plus farm workers. What you're going to find is a large number of farm workers who we want to vaccinate because they're picking the crops. And so, yes, I agree that that is critical and that should be the way we follow it. But then again, I have a little bit of a problem between vaccinating everyone we can who's in that essential area and vaccinating people who we want to be out working. So yes, and yes, and yes.
Mr. Chairman, and Diana can speak to that because our state and our federal partners have both allocated for the increased vaccination schedule specifically for our farm workers.
Or border patrolmen
And
who are of all different ages, or policemen, or firemen. So it's 65 and everybody that meets the 1B. And I tell you, for us here in Yuma County, a lot of people meet the 1B.
Yes, we have a really broad 1B category. And again, thank you for your advocacy, because I think that's important to recognize that, you know, you as board members have been working with other elected officials as well to advocate for additional vaccine, because when it was originally allocated, it was just population based, not, you know, and so our farm working community, which is so broad, and our winter visitor populations were things that need to be incorporated into our estimate. And I know that for law enforcement and some of our federal partners, you've been advocating for additional vaccine as well. So thank you. And on our end, again, from a provider perspective, everybody that's working with us to disperse the vaccination, administer it, it's just to make sure we adhere to the tier. We provide it in the quickest, safest way, equitable way that we can, and that we document. Because if you're advocating for additional vaccine, we need to show that we can administer it and that we're doing it the way it was intended.
All right.
I just want to say thanks, Diana, and you mentioned it, you know, throughout when you were speaking, but at the end is we need to work together.
Yeah.
It's no matter what issues are coming up, but if they need help inputting or whatever, I think the entities are willing to help. At the end of the day, less vaccines we get, it affects the whole county. No matter who gets it, but it affects everybody. So I think working together and trying to get this just as soon as possible out of the way, it'll be better for everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana, and thank your staff for doing such a great job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your support.
Tell them to shut off their phone on weekends. All right. Thank you, Tony. All right. We're going to move on because we got a lot to move on to. So we're going to go to county administration and grants. So authorize the county administrator to accept the U.S. Treasury grant allocation for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program in the amount of $6,504,587.40. You know, it's $1 billion there. To assist families impacted by the pandemic, and authorize county administrator to enter into an agreement with the Arizona Department of Economic Security pending legal review to implement the program, and authorize the Office of Management and Budget to establish budget authority for estimated expenditures for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, utilizing available and appropriated emergency reserves budget authority as needed, not to exceed the grant amount. Nancy. first of all, before you begin, I want to congratulate you in getting the grant to begin with. And the amount of the grant is exceedingly large for what I thought you needed, but I'm going to let you get into that. Go ahead, Nancy.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The emergency rental assistance funding is to help families who are impacted by the pandemic, to help them with rental and utility assistance. And it's a fast rollout of the program, and DES, in anticipation of the funding, did create a portal to accept applications electronically, similar to their unemployment insurance. And because of the fast rollout, they have reached out to those communities that received the allocation that they're willing to include us into their program if we want to roll our share of the allocation up to the state level, and they will implement it on our behalf. Because the funding, once we send the funds up to the state, there will be no set aside to ensure that the $6.5 million comes back here locally. And it's a first come, first serve basis. You know, they roll out statewide, whoever that reach out to them for funding. And there will also be no local assistance provided. They will have a call center for families with issues in getting into their portal or putting in the application. So in light of that, I did reach out to some of our local jurisdictions and find out what's going on locally, so that you as a board can have an informed decision whether you want to roll that funding up to DES, or if you choose, you can certainly handle the program locally if you choose. So the local jurisdictions feel that the need is there. In fact, City of Yuma had provided their CDBG COVID-19 funding for rental assistance. And they had utilized, contracted with Western Arizona Council of Government to implement the program. And they have provided somewhere around $1.4 million since the pandemic, and all the funds have been used. They were providing 1 to 3 months of rental assistance to families. And in speaking with Western Arizona Council of Government, I also found out that the State of Arizona Department of Housing had also provided some rental assistance funding to our area as well. And so also around, I take that back. City of Yuma had provided about 700,000. Arizona Department of Housing also provided about 700,000. So we have a total in our area since the pandemic about 1.4 million. So all the funds have been utilized. And if we choose to do it locally, Western Arizona Council of Government is willing to negotiate with us on a contract basis to implement a program, to assist us in implementing a program. So with that, obviously the rollout will be a lot faster if we choose to go DES and you choose to send the funds directly to the state and to have that handle. So with that,
Okay, Nancy, I know some of the board members are going to have something to say about this. I particularly wouldn't like to send it to DES, even if you have to work with the city of Yuma, which is something I loathe to do, but can do, you know, and to try to keep these funds local and under local control. Now, I wouldn't mind sending a certain portion to DES for them to handle their list, because they probably have a list and they're probably ready. But sending the whole amount to the state and hoping the state covers the area is not something I particularly am inclined to. I would rather have us check and see if WCAG or some of the local, even our local authority, and, you know, again, including the city of Yuma. This is a county-wide effort anyway, or are we supposed to just cover the unincorporated areas? Maybe that's the question. Countywide. So that means we can use it anywhere in Yuma County. We can use it in Welton, we can use it in the foothills, we can use it in the city of Yuma, and Somerton, San Luis, anywhere in the county. When I first heard the amount, 6 million, I thought it was an overreach. But when I hear that the city of Yuma has used a million, over a million, then it may be wise to check with them and see if they still have a need for more.
Yeah.
And to see if WCAG can handle this rollout in their system, and maybe even add, you know, some of the other agencies that are, I'm sure some of the other nonprofit agencies that handle this. I don't know how complicated that can be, and I know we want to get this thing out as fast as possible, but I certainly don't look forward to sending all the money to DES, the state DES, and having it only come in portions to Yuma County. There's no way that we can manage that through DES. DES is going to run it on their own system, and it will disappear. And maybe it will be used for Yuma County, and maybe it won't be used for Yuma County. I'm sure that eventually they'll give us a report, but there is no particular way that I can see that we can go back to them and say, only use that for Yuma County. It goes into a state pot, and they will distribute it accordingly. Is that correct, or am I just getting it wrong?
That's our, what we've been informed.
That's kind of difficult for me to do. Supervisor Simmons and Supervisor Lyons, and if you want to say something, Supervisor Porcias, I'll let you go. And Supervisor Pancras, yeah. He must be there sometime in the interim. Supervisor.
I would just like to see us with that much, you know, we hit the smaller municipalities pretty hard, like Welton, Gadsden, you know, and then start Sumterton, San Luis. You know, we can help them, but mainly hit the outlying areas and the smaller municipalities that can't get this type of money. Just due to the fact of their size sometimes, and they don't have that ability to. And then, you know, jump on board with the city and stuff.
Oh, okay. So your take on it is try to keep it local, help the smaller communities that aren't really designed to, or cannot access this type of money first.
Yes.
Then go into city of Yuma or whatever if we have leftover funds, which we will. But first of all, we need to make a decision. Are we going to send this to DES or not? And then if we don't decide to do that, then we need to start working on a plan to let it out within the county itself. So I think the first decision, and this is only what's in the agenda, which is in the agenda, is do we want to contract this money out to DES? And do we want to authorize the budget? I think we can authorize the budget anyway. It's just whether the decision to approve it to be sent over to DES, I think that one is going to be a little trickier than that. Supervisor Lyons?
So my suggestion would be on that you would amend the motion on section A to authorize the county administrator to enter into an agreement with an identified party for administration of the program and not name DES, and we would seek local participation and partnership with WCAG. So you would amend the motion and not put DES in there, but a future identified party.
Can we then?
And then we'll bring it back subject to legal review.
Perfect. And then approve that partner based on bids
So we'll bring
or
back the contract later.
administrative fees?
We'll be bringing a contract later.
Yes.
And it would take research from the grants department, Nancy and your staff, to research who can handle that. WCAG can handle a portion, whether the Yuma County Housing can handle a portion, whether, you know, the city of Welton can handle a portion, whether, see, Gadsden is a different thing, because Gadsden doesn't have a government.
Yeah.
Welton is so there's the Orange Grove area, which I think is Somerton by now, isn't it?
No.
So Somerton would handle it, and then the rest of the unincorporated areas would have to be done by WCAG or some other agency that can handle that. I wouldn't like to really just lay it all out on the grants department, on Nancy and her people, because you're busy enough as it is, handling the CDBGs, handling all the things. But the money is large enough to be able to even hire someone temporarily to handle it, if need be, I think. do you have an allocation, or is it simply all the assistance has to go out, or do they give you an administrative sort of line item in there that you can work under?
90% of the funding has to go for direct assistance. So there's only a 10% administration.
So $600,000, approximately 600, a little over $600,000, $650,000 is can be set aside to administer the program.
Correct.
And of course, if you give it out to someone like WACOG, you would have to give that 10% up for them to actually manage it, I think. And you couldn't just simply say, here's, $1 million, and you go ahead and distribute it without telling them, here's some money to cover your administrative costs. I suppose that's the way it works. Normally, most of these nonprofits can handle it, but they need assistance paying their people. That's normally the way it goes. And 10% isn't that much. It's normally between 15 and 20% in some cases. So the idea is, or at least what's in front of us, is two things. One is to decide to go ahead and either approve DS or approve the county administration office or the administrator to go ahead and process this did I call it process? Or to accept the responsibility of distributing these funds locally within the county and find the right partners. I hate to use the word partners after the health department, but find the right partners to be able to handle that locally, that can cover Yuma County, specifically targeting the unincorporated areas first, and then going into the smaller cities and towns and see if they can handle some of this. This is going to be a complex project. It's not a simple project, and I just want to make sure that before we accept the responsibility to do it ourselves, we can handle that. Even the distribution of these funds is going to take some time, and it's going to take some research, and it's going to take some contracts which have to be reviewed by legal and brought back to the board for their approval. Okay? Now, Supervisor Porches?
I think.
Supervisor Lyons, you had your hands up?
Well, just kind of a point of clarification to what Supervisor Simmons and you both said. Maybe need is need, regardless of where people live. So to prioritize, I think, would be very difficult, because if somebody doesn't have a job, they don't have a job, they don't have a job, period. But my question, I guess, is what is your understanding as far as DES administration versus the way that WACOG would handle it? And I'm sure that administration can do the due diligence, but I just wanted to know from your understanding what that looks like differently.
Obviously, if the funds go up to a state level, we have
Zero control.
no role.
Okay.
We may have some reporting role, since we are the one that received the funding from the treasury. If we do it locally and we contract with WACOG, they will provide us with information, but it's going to be more of a partnership. We will have to do substantial amount of work. The policies has to be set up, the applications, the making sure that the capacity is there, processing the payments. So there is a lot of work on our end that would have to be done.
I'm sure in the grant it had guidelines as far as how to set it up and the requirements, or was it just a blanket? A lot of that work, I'm saying, might be done already.
Right. There are criteria that are established through the Treasury grant that we're receiving, so everybody will follow that, whether it's DES or here locally. I think the concern is that DES, it'll all be online. We have a population here that needs a lot more hand-holding from Nancy's own experience, as well as the people in our cities. So we want to be able to have people on the ground to help people go through the process, and I think that's the additional effort that's required. But we think it's worth it to make sure that the people who need it here locally will get it. WACOG has the system in place to be able to do the eligibility criteria and making sure people get through the process. But the hands-on, identifying people and telling them this resource is available and helping them apply for it is the piece that is going to be more labor-intensive, but we feel like it's worthwhile to do.
Okay.
But the administration, the big piece of the administration would be through WACOG, the hands-on assistance to people would be Nancy as well as other partners in the cities and towns.
Yeah, and it would be better if we found one or two, like WCAG and maybe some other agency that works on this to be able to do it and not spread it out to cities, towns, and so forth. And with the caveat that they have to serve anyone in Yuma County, whether they're inside the city of Yuma, inside Welton,
Right.
inside
Yeah.
San Luis,
Because they're all
inside
county
Somerset.
residents.
As long as it's a countywide program, and hopefully they'll be able to balance out a little bit and understand that as a county administration, we look at smaller communities and areas, unincorporated areas, with a lot more attention than we would areas that already have access to some funding to help them solve the problem, which is in this case the city of Yuma and probably the city of San Luis and Somerton and even Welton. They might have received a small portion of that CARES Act. They didn't?
This grant is specifically
No,
for
I know this grant. I
entities
know
of
this grant.
200,000 and over, and so we're receiving it on behalf of everybody in the
Oh,
county.
good then. Then let's share the wealth with the smaller communities. At least share the need and, make, get. I thought it was a lot of money to begin with, but when I heard the city of Yuma already used $1 million, I said, well, it may not be. I may be underestimating the actual damage that, this COVID thing has done to renters. My understanding is that this money, when it goes to a renter, it has to go to a renter that has been determined to have been impacted by COVID, which is why DES made sense. Because DES obviously has the unemployment figures, DES pre-qualifies these people. And that's why I thought when you said DES, I said, okay, well, at least that agency has information on people already. But when I heard that we would have to send them all the money and then hope some of it returns to Yuma County, that's not, I don't know, getting money from the state is tough enough. Sending money back to the state, it just seems to me like a no-brainer. It's not really going to work out well. It's like gasoline taxes, and let's not go into that.
Don't open that
Let's
door.
not go into that. Supervisor Porches, no, I can get back to.
Yeah, just a question. I mean, can we partner up with other entities or any like WCAG or whoever, any other organization that does this, or does the county have to do it? I mean, I understand you're gonna have to do part of it, but can we partner up with someone else? Okay.
We can certainly partner up, and we've got a good core of partnerships with the local jurisdictions. In terms of funding, the 10% administration funding, we have to be careful with that because it's only 10%. And as Chairman had already identified, if we contract with nonprofits, they typically require more than 10% to administer any type of program. So we don't want to dilute that because 10% of $500,000 is not a lot of money, and it'll probably be impossible for a nonprofit to administer a program on 10% administration. 10% of $6.5 million is a substantial amount of money. So therefore, that's the reason why I think WCAG is willing to take on the program. So we don't want to divvy out the funding to too many nonprofits or partners. If you wish, we can certainly put in some sort of IGA as well with the partnerships, similar to how we do the home consortium funding, which is a set aside a percentage to go into City of Yuma and the rest go into outlying communities. That's that versus the first come, first serve. That's an option for you as well.
Okay, I trust that everyone that's going to be working on this understands what our priorities are, and that those will be reflected when we draft the contract. We don't want to be exclusive of anyone, but we do want to be inclusive of the people that live out in the outlying areas who may not have access to any other kind of assistance but this one. I mean, City of Yuma probably has a plan, has a program. We will not exclude that. We will tell people, the contract will be, yes, it's going to have to be first come, first serve, regardless of where they come from, because this is supposed to be countywide. We're not going to, I don't think we can discriminate that way, but we certainly can focus the help, and tell WCAG or whomever we contract with okay, the focus is, your areas, these areas. I mean, I don't know, I think I know we can't simply just exclude areas. This is a county-wide, and we don't want to. We want to be able to help whatever help is needed and not look into whether they're within the city of Yuma or Somerton or San Luis or Welton, as opposed to Gadsden or the Orange Grove or the foothills. We need to help. This is not the time we're going to, we're gonna, if we run out of $6 million, I'll be happy. Really, because I think that if that, and disappointed, because if the problem is that big, and it continues, this will be just a Band-Aid if it's that big. Hopefully it's not. But anyway, we've taken a long time. I think the comments we have made, and I know Jonathan Lyons will raise his hand again.
No.
So, the comments we've made sort of cover most areas. Supervisor Lyons?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to ask for that amended legal language that Susan had recommended.
Right. Okay, so the motion contains two. There's actually two sections to the motion. The second one is easy because it sets the budget authority. The first one will read like what, Susan?
Make a motion?
No, she's gonna read it and then you guys can make a motion.
That's right.
Just let her read it.
A, authorize county administrator to accept U.S. Treasury grant allocations for the emergency rental assistance program in the amount of $6,504,587.40 to assist families impacted by the pandemic, and authorize the county administrator to enter into an agreement with the future identified party pending legal review to implement the program.
See that? Yeah, that's only changing 2 or 3 words. Instead of going to DS, we'll just allow the administrator to find the partners and bring it back to us, okay?
And Mr. Chairman, that's the motion I would like to make with the amended legal language.
All right, so there's, the motion will both be A
And B.
Right?
Yes.
So who seconds it?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to authorize this item based upon the latest version of it. Okay, the one that was read at the end. I don't want to read it again. So, any more discussion on this item? Thank you, Nancy. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Lynn voted yes. I barely heard it in here.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Before Nancy slips away, I just want to thank her for all the work she does. It's not just this, but all the grants and different things that she does. Her and her department. I mean, whether it's water related, like out in Tacna, searching. It's nobody really has an understanding, I think, of everything that she has to do and what she puts her, what she has her hands in to help the county and the residents. So I just wanted to recognize her before she slipped away and thank her.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
All right, Nancy, thank you very much. That motion carries. So we move on to item 3, which is for Public Works, to adopt resolution number 2021, rescinding portions of resolution number 0332 and directing certain evaluation standards and conditions and backlog targets to be used to assess the health of the county's paved road network. We know the background, but you can summarize it quickly.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Josh Scott, Public Works Director. No PowerPoint on this one either. So back in July, I did the PowerPoint. Presented on why Public Works inspects our paved roads, how we go about doing that, and just as a quick refresher, some of the issues associated with our current system. So the system we're currently using was developed in-house. It does not follow a recognized industry standard or any certain protocols. And that resulted in overinflation of those scores, inconsistencies between inspectors, and ultimately information and data that maybe wasn't totally as useful as it should be, and we couldn't compare the health of our network to other jurisdictions or even against national standards. During that presentation, we talked about an ASTM standard. That's the industry recognized standard for asphalt evaluation and ratings. And I mentioned during that presentation that was the first in a 3-part series. So I came back in October with Infrastructure Management Services, who was our consultant that did a comprehensive network-wide evaluation on all of our paved roads. And during that presentation, they highlighted the methodology in that ASTM standard. And then they developed some budget recommendations and some backlog targets as well. And also as part of their work, they put forth a recommendation on a target condition rating. So that's what this resolution does. It's the third step in this process is set that ASTM standard as the methodology to be used in rating our roads and sets a target PCI index, that's the score associated with it, and then looks at a backlog percentage. So the backlog is basically the deferred work out there. We want to limit that because if we don't, that's where we get into that black hole that we'll probably never get out of. It requires a lot of capital investment in order to rehab that asphalt. So one quick reminder, we talked about it during the first presentation. The 03 resolution does have a target condition index of a 65. This new resolution has a target index of a 60. That's not to say that a reduced level of service is acceptable or that we're going to let our pavement deteriorate further. It's just simply normalizing to those ratings that are in the ASTM standard and what's recognized kind of
nationally. I know Supervisor Linus is coming in late to this part, and so as a sort of a further explanation, when you came on board, we had a rating system that was basically a percentage system. It was like, this is, it's like an aging and condition report that we used as a method for prioritizing paving and different, prioritizing a response to decaying road conditions. Now, this in no way excludes the fact that there are some roads that for some reason may be damaged beyond or something in an emergency situation, right? This is just a way that we set up maintenance and repairs so that we prevent the further decaying of some of these roads to the point we have to replace them. It's a way to upkeep and maintain county roads, and it's a way that is industry standardized. In other words, there's a little bit of deviation maybe in some particular situations where you had a road that's washed off, for example, or something. You have to go in there and replace it. That's not going to stop you from doing any of those emergency repairs. It's not going to stop you from getting a call from Supervisor Lyons or Supervisor Porches saying, okay, well, I drove, or Supervisor Simmons or Supervisor Reyes, not Lynn. Lynn's not going to call. Saying, hey, we got this problem on this particular road. Can you go see it? Can you handle it? That's just something that you do that is beyond this. This is more or less a control system where you can start preventing, further damage to a road based upon a certain industry standard that tells you, hey, if you don't do something now, this will get much worse later, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. So there's two components basically to how Public Works approaches road maintenance. There's that demand or unscheduled maintenance, and then we have our planned maintenance. So this will advise us and help guide us when we go to do our budget and we plan our projects. It will help us prioritize. And also in our discussions with engineering about what roads maybe have decayed beyond a cost-effective rehab treatment and do need to be reconstructed. So that portion of it will help me, this resolution will help guide that. The emergency maintenance or demand maintenance that you're speaking of, that's totally outside of this.
Just wanted to make sure. Anybody else have any other points to make on this? If not, what we're doing here is replacing an old outdated system that didn't fit any standards and replacing it with one that is basically standardized throughout the country that allows us to, or allows the department to make decisions based on facts and as opposed to just what we think.
That's correct. And one other quick thing is the backlog piece. So that was not included in the old resolution. So I don't know that it did happen, but it's conceivable that we could kind of rig the system and pour a bunch of maintenance into certain roads to bring that score up by deferring maintenance on other roads. But a year or two, it's
catching up to you.
It's going to be costly. Our goal is to try and keep that backlog under control.
Okay, well, related to this, but not directly about this, I mean, to me, I've been around a while. I just don't want to admit how long. And it's always been, to me, it's always a it's always a situation that whenever we get a road improvement, a plan, when we come down to executing it, when you give out the bid and stuff, you know, God is taking, it always takes longer than the estimated time for completion. For whatever reason, I think we always assume that work is going to go on schedule, but it almost never does. I don't know how many years it took to get the extension of Avenue B done, but when I saw the finished product, I was surprised. I thought I was going to leave office before that happened. It was like 10 years in the making. So I just used the opportunity to complain.
You can blame engineering.
Yeah, you can blame engineering and, DES.
I don't want to deflect.
We'll get
That's
Craig when
something
he
to
comes up.
address with.
Well, I'm talking about, for example, Avenue A and 15, which is a prime example. Everybody drives through there. The other day I was coming over and said open, so I went that way, and it was open directly. It didn't open to the Avenue A, so I had to go over to 3E or something and turn around and go back. It's just, I don't know if I should shut up and just get used to it, because it's not going to change much. But hopefully we can get those contractors to be honest about the time it will take them. But anytime they open up an old road, they find, different things in there they weren't expecting. So I just can never get used to the fact that a project can take that long, even though it's government project. All right. Yeah. Okay. Any more comments on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as presented. Adopt resolution number 2021-01.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion is to adopt resolution number 2021-01 and rescind portions of resolution number 303-32, okay? Any more discussion on the item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Hey, Josh, before you leave, I want to tell you personally, having been around a long time, that your presence here has improved dramatically the way we handle most of these things. And I do want to I didn't want to do this because it sounded like we were, praising everybody. I need somebody that to bang on, but you're not the one. You've done a great job. So thank you very much, Josh.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Avenue, County 11, County 11 and G. County 11 and G, you need to take a look at that.
Uh-oh, now we have another director. We've got another one here.
Yeah, all right, let's go. The last item on the discussion and item, and I was avoiding this because he has a PowerPoint presentation, is development services to conduct a hearing and refer any requested changes to the process to the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding desired changes to zoning ordinance section 1205 to modify how zoning violations public hearings are conducted. It's just the hearings? We're not going to change anything? Just the way that we conduct hearings? Put it on.
Craig Sellers, Director of Development Services. We are having a hearing, and if there's a strong decision to make changes, we would initiate a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission to move forward with it.
Before you begin, do you want me to open up the public hearing, or do you want me to do the presentation and then open it up to the public?
Mr. Chairman, this is not a public hearing. It's just an item for discussion.
Oh, it's just how they're conducted? Well, it says conduct a hearing, right? So when you mean conduct a hearing, you don't mean a public hearing?
No, that's the hearing,
this is
the
what
case for the violation.
It says conduct a hearing and refer any requested changes. So conduct a hearing means to me, well, why would we have a hearing if it's an item in the agenda?
The wording was changed, so I'm not exactly sure.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. If it's not a public hearing, it's just an item in the agenda, I don't mind. But if it requests, the way it's listed, it seems to request a hearing. And normally a hearing is a public hearing, because otherwise it's just an item in the agenda. But if the attorney doesn't think we need to, I mean, it doesn't hurt. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't hurt to conduct it as a public hearing if that's what you guys want. But I just wanted to know whether you want to do a presentation and then I open it up, or if not.
I was planning on giving an overview of
Okay.
the process is hard to you.
Hurry up, the supervisor Lyons is out the room.
So, first, the hearing officer process is handled by Arizona revised statutes, and within 11.815, it gives the what we're allowed to do as a county. And so we're able to establish civil penalties, which for a residential case is up to $750 per day on a violation and $10,000 a day for a commercial violation. We have adopted that standard in the zoning ordinance as well. The board has the ability to appoint hearing officers. We have 2 of them at this point, Mr. Jerry Cook and Mr. George Holfer. There are procedures that are required to be done. Essentially, at the hearing officer, both sides need to have the opportunity to be heard, and there needs to be written procedures that is adopted. Those have been adopted at Yuma County through the zoning ordinance. Within the zoning ordinance, section 1209 gives the overview of the rules for public hearings before the hearing officers. Subsection A requires that those be initialized by a complaint by the zoning inspector. And so whether the department receives a complaint from the public or staff, it is the zoning inspector who submits the complaint to the hearing officer. Serving notice within the zoning ordinance, we have at least 5 days in advance that personal service is done, or 30 days in advance if they're done by certified mail. And then within the rules of procedures, we have the hearing officer procedures to talk about the oaths, testimony, and evidence. How are each of those handled? At the conclusion of the hearing officer shall determine whether a violation exists, and if a violation exists, whether a civil sanction will be imposed on the violation. The zoning ordinance also allows a hearing officer to rehear a violation and either suspend or reduce a fine or schedule compliance hearings related to those cases. The zoning ordinance also gives rules for appeal, and appeal would be made to the Board of Supervisors. Within our practice of, we go from the standard to what is actually occurring right now. We receive a complaint from the public, as we've discussed in the past. Deputy zoning inspector then prepares a case by going to the site and inspecting what is the conditions of the site, taking photographs, and preparing a case. That case is then submitted to our hearing officer specialist, who provides administrative support to the hearing officers. The docket's prepared and the cases are scheduled. When a case comes, once it's scheduled, notices of hearing are sent out to the property owner or the tenant of the property. An initial hearing is held to determine if there's a violation that exists on the site, and at that time, a civil sanction is often imposed if there's a violation. A compliance hearing is also a public hearing, but at that point, it's the opportunity for the property owner to come back and say, I was in violation, but I've gone through, I've cleaned it up, and I'd like the civil sanction reduced or removed. At the point that the hearing officer isn't going to hear it anymore, they close the case. Closing the case does not say a violation doesn't exist. It doesn't remove the civil sanction. It just simply says it's not going to be discussed again as this case. Another case can be prepared, but it's not a setting aside of that finding. It's just saying, done talking about it. So typical initial hearing, we do the site inspection like we said. We send out a courtesy notice to the people, letting them know that there's a violation on their site. Oftentimes, the people have it cleaned up by the time of the initial hearing. If that's the case, and at the site inspection we see that it's cleaned up, we file a request to dismiss the case. We don't want to proceed with cases that they've already done the work to clean it up. If the defendant requests more time, they can't make it to the hearing, they think they can get it cleaned up with a little bit more time, they'll ask for continuance. Usually continuances are granted because of that desire to have both sides be able to be heard. If it is heard and there's sufficient evidence to show that they're in violation, finding a violation will be at that point, the civil sanctions can be implemented. At this time, we're typically seeing one-time civil sanctions in place. We do have it within the zoning ordinance the ability for daily or somewhere in between violations. So the hearing officer could say, from this date to this date, you're in violation. That hasn't been used in the past, but it is a tool that's already there that could be used. And then they can also set a compliance hearing once, if it's in violation, give them a certain number of days to come into compliance and bring it back at a later hearing for them to bring things in. We typically want a compliance hearing because this is an arbitration process. It gives us the opportunity for the hearing officer to hear the concerns of the county and the people that are the neighbors and complaining about the site, and the homeowner who has specific needs and restrictions on how they can approach it. So the hearing officer has the ability to balance those. That arbitration gives time as one of the big elements of how long is this going to take to clean up. So their circumstances. Can they financially do this? Do they have other challenges that they have? The magnitude of the problem. If we've got a site that is covered with trash, they may not be able to clean it up in a month.
Yeah, and we can hear you.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't think I meant to shout at all. I think she's on the road. I hope.
And then third is the seriousness of the case.
Okay.
The more serious it is, the faster we need to get it cleaned up. And so balancing those three needs is something that the hearing officer has the capability of doing as that third party in reviewing these. For a compliance hearing, so when they come back and they've had time to clean it up, what occurs? We again send a zoning inspector out to look at the site. The hearing officer again can find compliance, can find that the violation still exists. They can uphold or modify the civil sanction. They can set another compliance hearing, or they can, and then they can also close the case. So typically we'll see setting another compliance hearing occur under two circumstances. One, the person comes in and says, I've tried, but I can't afford it. The hearing officer or the zoning inspector identifies and says, we've seen them make about half of it cleaned up, but they're still working on it. We're seeing progress being made. Let's give them another 30, 60, or 60 days to get things done. The whole point of this process is to encourage people to move toward doing it themselves. How to initiate change? Overall change, something that's not already identified in the zoning ordinance would need to be modified into the zoning ordinance. So this is done through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so if there's recommendations you would like to be made, we would take those back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then they would run it through the process to bring back a modification to the zoning ordinance for you to vote on.
Okay.
And any
That's it?
questions?
All right. Well, no, I just want to make a comment, and I think most of the board members, I think, will agree that the idea when we began with the questions about the process was how can we squeeze the process so that these complaints are taken care of faster. In other words, that it won't take a year and a half to get a complaint process. What this presentation has done is reaffirm, especially for Supervisor, for example, Lyons, who hasn't been through this process, that there is a due process that has to happen that gives not only the people who complain, but the people who are the source of the complaint enough time and enough opportunity to fix the problem, and that by now you have squeezed the process into a situation that the hearing officer has certain leeway, but he can't just simply say, well, you fix it or you go to jail, that type of thing, that you have to follow a process. And that what you're asking from us is if we want that process to be squeezed even further or changed, that you need direction from us to take to the Planning and Zoning Commission for that change to happen, because it just can't change if you guys want to. Correct?
Correct.
Right, that's pretty much, I think, succinctly put. Mr. Lyons?
What's the genesis for most complaints?
Okay, go ahead and answer, Craig. Trash. You know, this is an old saying that says some people scratch at other people's treasures. Well, that happens a lot out in the county.
Okay.
You know, people have a bunch of old cars, and when you go back and tell them they look ugly, they'll tell you it was my granddad, and I'm refurbishing it, and it's not trash. And then you ask them, what about those mattresses? And, oh, I still can use the springs, or something. You know, people have all kinds of reasons. Supervisor Simmons.
What I'd like to see, and I know we've talked about this numerous times, Meg, is the time frame that they're given, because I know a hearing officer can give 2 or 3 or 4 extensions, and he may give 2 or 3 months in each extension, at each extension, which in turn drags the whole process out, a year or more sometimes. And I don't think it should take that long to make somebody clean up their yard or whatever the issue may be. And it kind of rolls back into the abatement proceedings we're trying to push forward, where it doesn't take so long for people that live in a neighborhood that's got a dump in the middle of it to seek resolution to fix the problem, because it's a health hazard, it's property value hazard, it lowers property values in and around neighborhoods when you have these dumps in the middle. And we've got to compact it a little more where they're not given so long. I understand it may take time, but to me, 3 or 4 months is more than enough time to be able to clean up your place, I would think. I mean,
under most circumstances, you would think that 3 or 4 months would be enough time. However, when you have somebody on limited income, or they're having health problems, or a death in the family, to where they don't have the means to do it, there are some extenuating circumstances that cause some of these to be longer than that reasonableness.
Yeah, and I think that in the past, again, going back some time before this new board was here, there was a process where you went to someone and said, okay, well, you got a problem, but you say you can't fix it yourself. Would you accept the help of the probation department or the state prisoners or whatever? We used to be able to do that. Now, given the current conditions right now, we really can't do those kind of things without exposing more people to more issues. But in the past, we could actually go there and say, you have a problem. If you can't solve it, we'll help you solve it. But you don't have an excuse to keep, I mean, some of them, I call them excuses, but reasons. Let's just say that you have a reason. You're low income, you bought the property the way it was, or the trees are growing and you can't pay for a trimmer to come in. We used to be able to say, well, as long as you allow us to go in and help you, we can send the probation department, we can send, someone to give you a hand. That is, I think, much more difficult now. So we're now facing a situation where we like to speed up the process, but the due process, the process people can go through, it's in the hands of the hearing officer, and we don't know the circumstances of every individual case. So short of us stepping in and being like a deciding factor, in other words, acting as the hearing officers, I find it very difficult to tell someone without knowing what the situation is, well, you got to do it in a week or two because, the supervisor from that district is really pissed. So you can't, that's the situation you guys find yourself in. You find yourself in a situation where you have to follow this particular layout, this process, and the pressure from us is, look, it shouldn't take a year for that person to clean up the yard. I understand the situation. I've been around it long enough to understand that staff finds itself in the precarious situation where they want to do what we tell them to do, and at the same time, they have to follow the rules we gave them to follow. So you're here today, I think, saying, okay, if you can think of a way to speed up this process and still give these people the opportunity to fix the problem, let us know, because you guys can then take it to planning and zoning, and hopefully we can come back to us for a decision. Is that more or less what
That's
you?
correct.
Okay.
And not
so,
just
Mike, I'm sorry.
And not just wanting to come with with a problem and say, here, fix this. We are taking efforts on the administrative side to try to speed up the process as much as we can.
Within the confines of what you got to deal with.
Yeah. We're getting them on the dockets faster than what we have in the past. 2, when the planning department is taking them, presenting their side of the case to the hearing officers, I believe they're giving realistic times of saying, yes, we agree with giving an extension. Here's the time frame that we feel is reasonable for this. And so it's not just up to the hearing officer, and we're taking some of these opportunities to push for, let's get resolution.
Well, let me give you an idea. For example, if we were to try to speed up the process, we would have to go and make a decision like this. The hearing officer can only give one extension. That happens to be a restrictive measure. That means that the hearing officer can hear this case, but he can't keep giving people, extensions. That would be the kind of thing that a board can direct people to do. But you understand what you're doing, right? What you're doing is you're getting yourself in the middle of a process that you don't have enough information, you're cutting avenues off. And if that's what we want as a board, if what we want to do as a board is reduce the time, those are the only ways I can think of reducing the time. It's actually restricting the hearing officer and how many, for example, what do you call it, delays, or what do you call them? Oh, continuances. How many continuances can you give someone? Because some people know how to game the system, and they will game the system. And by that, I mean, they will keep asking for extensions, they will, and they'll give you reasons. And the reasons normally, if they put them in front of you, like, well, I got cancer and I'm dying in 2 weeks. I mean, what do you want to do, right? But I think our take here as supervisors is we've got to find a balance, all right, between the actual needs of in this case, the violator, and the actual request that we get from people that, hey, there's a problem, and it's a health problem, it's a neighborhood problem. Finding that right path to follow is really the difficult one. But short of cutting the number of extensions you can get and giving that direction directly to the zoning officer, I find that anything else will put us in the middle of a decision-making process that's what we set up hearing officers for. So we need to work in the process more than the way it's handled. It's more in the process, in the times in other words, we can't really go after the violator or can't really go after the people who complain. We need to go, if we can't, if we can say it that way, we need to go and limit the hearing officer and how many extensions they can give. So people know, hey, look, I get one more crack at it, but I can't come back, a month and a half from now and say, well, I had to go back. Or, this COVID situation is a prime example of that, right? So you could give somebody a continuance of 45 days. That person can come in with a COVID test that says he was positive for a month. And what do you do? What is the hearing officer supposed to do? Tell him, well, I'm sorry, dude, but, COVID or not, you have, the next 7 days. Now, we could have hearing officers that are doing it like that. But in most cases, I think most officers would say, okay, well, that's a real reason. That is a justifiable situation. That's all I can think of in terms of your presentation. I mean, you've given us a pretty clear view that the zoning officer has to sort of give this process due process, which it means respecting the rights of both sides. And so, other than stepping in again and making the process tighter, in other words, reducing the time the officers can give continuances. Other than that, I find that stepping into this situation means making that decision for the hearing officer, and we won't know. And it's like you don't want to step into the hearing. It's like stepping in telling a judge what to do. I mean, judges get a little ticked off about, well, you don't know enough, right? You just know this or that. That's how I see it. Now, I don't know, the rest of the board have their own opinions, but.
I just have a question, Craig. Now, just so I understand, now, if somebody comes in, a hearing officer, and they fine them guilty and they pay the fine, it goes away, even though nothing was done to correct the problem? Does that close the case?
Well,
or why doesn't that?
Don't confuse closing the case with absolving a violation. It's not the same thing. All closing the case says is we're not discussing it anymore.
Okay, but
the violations is still there. It can still go to abatement, and it can go through a variety of other recourses that are available to the county and also the neighbors. Paying the sanction is just paying the obligation that they have because of the violation. It doesn't resolve.
So don't make it go away. It's still there, and it's still an
still
issue
there.
that we'll pursue or through other means to handle it.
And normally court. Normally abatement.
Whether we do or not, there's processes that would help.
I'm sorry, Maggie. I know you've been standing there wanting to say something, but
She's
Craig
ready to
doesn't
back
want to
him
move
up.
away. I mean, I've been seeing if he moves, but he won't move. So you want to say something?
Yes, Maggie Castro, Planning and Zoning Director. My only comment on this was just going to be that the current zoning ordinance does not have a limit as to the number of compliance hearings that the hearing officer can grant or can give property owners or individuals who are cited as a zoning violation. And that gives him discretion to work with each case or each violator or each defendant on a case-by-case basis. For the hearings that were conducted in January, there were 2 deaths that occurred with defendant because of COVID. So now the people who are trying to resolve the violation have to go through probate because there was no will. They have to be able to access funds that the defendant had to be able to clean up the property. So limiting the number of compliance hearings through a change in the zoning ordinance takes away that discretion and that ability to work with defendants. There are some that bring the properties into compliance within a month or within 2 months. There are some that need more time because of health, because of financial situations that are in, or because the property is rented. They're not the people who are residing at the property. So then you get into landlord-tenant issues, which may require that they be given additional time to clean up or resolve the violation.
Right. Well, I want to tell you, my particular viewpoint is the problem is it's not us. It's the neighbors that complain or the people who look at that process and simply see a year go by or 6 months go by and do not know why. And they only have one recourse, which is to call you or call me or call someone and say, why is this not resolved? It's a health issue, it's a safety issue, whatever. So trying to find that proper balance, it's the difficult part, and it's why they pay us so much money. That to me means that as a board of supervisors, if we want to cut the time, we need to restrict the officer. Not the case is the case, and we don't know which case is going to come in front of him. But if he's got no limit on how many continuances he can give, he could get into a situation where the humane thing to do is to help him solve the problem, and that's just something that we may not be able to equip to do, and somewhere have to solve it. So, as I said before, I think you brought the point home by saying, look, the hearing officer can give continuances based on situations until health freezes over, and well, not that much. In Yuma, it's not going to happen, but it's just difficult to find that balance without knowing every individual situation that creates that problem. But at the same time, there has to be some sort of guidance to the hearing officer that this problem cannot, go on for a year and a half without someone complaining about it. So that's a tough decision that I think if we want some changes, that's the only change. To shorten up the time, we would be to say continuances cannot be over 45 days and you can only give 2. For example, as an example, I'm not saying that that's what we want to do, but because that would have to be put in the board back, for us to make a decision on. But, I'd like to know, what does the rest of the board feel? How does the rest of the board feels about that?
Kind of that way, Mr. Chairman, like we give him he can give 2 extensions and can't total more than, like, say, 6 months. Because I understand, like you said, medical issues and stuff.
Right, Mr. Chairman, but if the
If you have to
limit
go
is
through
2
probate.
months, then there will be no consideration for medical issues or 2
No,
continuances.
he said 6 months. I said 245-day extension. I mean, it could be up to 6 months, period. So you have a hearing, and the hearing officer determines that the person needs more time for whatever reasons. He can grant a 3-month extension, which is reasonable. But if that person comes back with an issue and says, I need another extension, he can only get 1 more, which limits, I mean, look, if you're one of those guys that cries every time you hear go to a movie, that it's tough to separate. I mean, it's really tough. But what we're dealing here is public good, and sometimes that's going to require you be a little harsh with the violator, as opposed to siding with the violator because he's got issues and not dealing with the fact that there was a complaint. And for Supervisor Lyons here, we don't do zoning violations by choice. In other words, we don't go around looking for them. These are all driven by somebody in, by a complaint from someone. So that person who complained has to have, some rights and expectations that we're going to get to the point we solve the problem. We just can't, and the complaint is, God, somebody complains it's taking over a year to solve, just cleaning up a yard. And then that's where I think we came back and said, hey, guys, what's going on? That's what's going on. Due process situation happens, and if you guys want to change that, then that's to us. And ladies and gentlemen, I think that Lynn is probably going to be out there, hearing this. If we want to make a change, what we have to do is you guys need to, today probably need to say, okay, we do want to limit the time, and we want to have something come back for us to make a decision in how long can that be. And we can be given 3 choices, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever. But there will be a time where it ends. And that's, I think, what some of us like to see.
Tony, I'm back. This is Lynn, and I'm with Darren. I'm dealing with some of that right now in one of my county islands, and I know there's some extenuating circumstances when you have a tenant, and the tenant is the one who's got all this garbage and derelict cars all over the place, but that landlord is still responsible for that property. So I know there's some extenuating circumstances, but I think that we're forgetting the people who are having to live with all this around them, garbage and trash and overgrown and derelict cars and all that. So I'm with Darren. I just want you to know.
All right. Well, it's normally the gas company's fault, but we don't find them anywhere. So, no, I mean, I think finding that balance is a tough part, but I think we do. If we're serious about not letting a situation go on for a year and a half, we're gonna have to say, look, no longer than 6 months or so, extensions. And I'm not talking about the day you have the public hearing, the decision, the cleanup. I'm just saying, look, there has to be an end to the extension process. And 6 months is a long time in my book, but it is much better than no guidance at all. And to me, no guidance at all, which means every time something happens, it's another reason why another continuance is given. It's not doing the public any good. It may be doing the violator, I hate to call him that, but it may be doing the person that's in there some good to get more time, but it isn't doing any good for the public who complain or for the issue that's at hand, which is normally, it's not just an eyesore. There are some issues with some of these things that are health and safety hazards. I mean, a fire can start, something, animals can live there, snakes, whatever. I mean, I'm sure that by the time somebody complains, it's because it's so obvious that you can't avoid it. So, what is this board inclined? Are you inclined? It seems to me Lynn and Darren would like to have a time frame for the continuations to be, so long. And in this case, 6 months is what they suggest. You may want to come back with an item for us to make the change and bring us some choices. 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and that would be, I think, the only place that we can really step up and control the time frames. Other than that, it's up to the hearing officer.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, by practice, staff does if the hearing officer has conducted one compliance hearing and the property has not been cleaned up at the second compliance hearing, staff does recommend that the case be closed and that the civil sanction be kept in place, or that the civil sanction remain if the property has not been brought into compliance. So that is where the hearing officer does have the discretion to, based on the evidence or the information that is provided by the defendant, to grant additional compliance hearings or not.
All right, so you are able to make a recommendation, is what you're saying, but you have no particular path or way to tell the hearing officer you can't keep giving extensions. I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, okay, you have a limit, and the staff can point to that whenever they make that recommendation, or it's simply going to apply. You got to solve this, right? Okay.
I'd like to, Mr. Chair, I'd like to see, like I said, 2 extensions not to exceed 6 months.
All right.
I think that's more
I think
than
that's
fair.
direction. We don't have to make a motion or authorize it, but that's pretty much direction.
Just for clarification, that's a total of 6 months and not 6 months per extension.
No, a total of 6 months, 3 months.
Total of
I mean,
6
we don't
months.
care if he gives 1, that's 6 months, or if he gives 2, that is 6 months, or 3, that is 6 months. It just can't go beyond 6 months.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify.
Right.
Susan?
Yeah, if I could clarify, I think you might want to just use the 6 months, because they could end up giving an extension for 1 week to get something done, or 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then it gets
No,
done.
no,
So
limit
I
of
don't think
6
you want
months.
to say
Combined.
yeah,
Yeah.
2 equals 6 months. I think you want to just say any amount of sanction or any amount
Not
of
beyond 6 months.
continuances cannot total more than 6 months.
He can give 1 extension for 6 months, for all I care, but it can't go beyond 6 months. And he has to see, or 1.
So the continuance hearings are set based on our set hearing schedules. So if a case is heard on February 4th and they need a compliance hearing, then the compliance hearing, depending on the amount of time that the defendant needs, could be March 4th, or the hearing in March, or the hearing in April, or the hearing in May.
And we get it.
And
It's a
so on.
continuance process, not
It's a
necessarily.
compliance hearing
Yes,
process.
Yeah, that's right.
So I can draft the language to amend the zoning ordinance. It'll go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their recommendation, and then back to the Board of Supervisors for action.
That's right. And that's what we like you to do. Thank you very much. We don't need to make a motion, I think. I think it's going to come back to us for a decision. We can discuss it further there. Thank you, Craig.
Yes.
All right. That was, I think, the last item that had discussion and action in it. The other item is more or less the legislative issues, which is discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative issues: a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priority. Ian? Ian? Whatever.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Ian McGahey, Deputy County Administrator. I'd like to update you on a few items.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Craig.
Last week, of course, this board met with all 6 of our state legislators for a discussion of several topics of importance to the county. It was a very good conversation, helpful to hear some of our legislators' priorities as well as to review details of items of interest to this board. Follow-up meetings have been scheduled for the next 2 months on the 4th Mondays, so that would be Monday, February 22nd and March 22nd at 9 a.m. There's been some more activity in this 55th Arizona State Legislature, as legislators have now completed 3 weeks of session. 1,375 bills have been introduced. There are 2 weeks left to move bills through committee in their chamber of origin. The state Senate majority released its draft $1.5 billion fiscal year 22 budget. The budget includes cuts of $450 million in taxes and in one-time spending. The budget also includes a one-time $300 million appropriation to pay down debt and PSPRS, and an additional $200 million in proposed one-time highway and road projects, and increased investment in rural development broadband. All of the County Supervisors Association legislative priorities have now been given bill numbers, except for short-term vacation property tax parity, which is still pending a sponsor. They do feel like they may have one, so that's good for us. The CSA Legislative Policy Committee met on Friday, reviewed 13 of those bills, and I will share brief summaries of not all, but some. HB 2138 is related to optional retirement programs, an item which was discussed in our legislative meeting last week. This would expand the population of university staff that can participate in an optional retirement system outside of ASRS, which, as Supervisor Pancrazzi noted, would increase the unfunded liability that all employers and employees in ASRS would have to fund due to the pooled nature of the plan. LPC voted to oppose. HB 2306, right to redeem lien sale. This is a rerun of the same bill from last year, which requires county treasurers to sell tax delinquent properties at auction rather than allowing a lien investor to acquire the property, meaning that treasurers would have to act as realtors under such a scenario and sell the property, then give all the profit back to the homeowner that didn't pay the taxes. This, of course, would be a significant burden and cost to the county, while the county also loses significant interest in purchasing the tax liens, which is revenue that the county relies on. The LPC voted to oppose this bill. President Steve Gallardo said they couldn't pick out a worse bill for our counties. ACO has also expressed its opposition, and Yuma County Treasurer Angela Moreno is also strongly opposed to that bill. 2 law enforcement bills were discussed that would increase state oversight of county law enforcement budgeting. HB 2310 would allow for an investigation by the Attorney General upon request of any member of this legislature of any reduction of a law enforcement agency's budget by 10% less than the previous year, and calls for the restoration of that budget, or state shared revenues would be reduced by the same amount.
Yeah, this would be the defunding bill? The anti-defunding bill.
HB 2420 would require political subdivisions to certify that there has not been a disproportionate reduction in the political subdivision's law enforcement agency's budget. The bill specifies the proportionate budgeting keeps the total law enforcement budget within 3 percentage points of the previous year. LPC voted to oppose both bills, noting that these bills insert the legislature into the county budgeting process, set bad precedent, and do not contemplate the various ways in which a sheriff's budget would fluctuate.
Yeah, I just want to make a point. If the budget has, for example, 20 vehicles to be purchased this year, and next year we don't purchase those 20 vehicles, we'd have to explain that. You know, why is the budget reduced? And it's because last year or this year we bought vehicles, and next year we don't need them. So it's a knee-jerk reaction to what's happening nationwide. I get it.
HB 2053 would increase pay for Arizona Superior Court clerks by $20,000 a year, going into effect in January of 2023. LPC took a neutral position on this bill. At the ACO Board of Directors meeting on January 15th, the board voted to move forward with the bill increasing salaries for positions of assessors, attorneys, recorders, school superintendents, sheriffs, supervisors, and treasurers at a flat increase of $20,000 effective January 1st, 2025. That particular bill just dropped. It's HB 2700, and like HB 2053 is sponsored by Representative Kavanaugh. A couple of COVID-related items briefly. HB 2570 would prohibit state agencies, counties, and municipalities from revoking business licenses of businesses not complying with the governor's executive order issued during a pandemic, unless the agency, county, or municipality can provide clear and convincing evidence that the business caused the transmission of the disease. The LPC voted to oppose this bill, noting it reduces a county's ability to address issues with businesses that are not complying with public health and safety requirements.
Which is exactly the purpose.
Senate Bill 1377 is intended to prevent frivolous lawsuits against employers related to COVID-19, including counties, unless there is a clear evidence that the employer acted with willful misconduct or gross negligence. The LPC voted to support this bill, noting that the Arizona County Insurance Pool is also supportive of this measure. You're familiar with Governor Ducey's first executive order of the year issued last week, which aims to speed up the distribution and administration of COVID-19 vaccine doses throughout the state. Diana talked about that earlier. On the national level, President Biden has referred to his goal of 100 million COVID-19 shots in 100 days as a wartime effort and has announced the purchase of 200 million additional vaccine doses to be delivered this summer. As of Friday, 44 million vaccine doses have been distributed nationally, but only 24 million have been reported as being administered. And finally, I wanted to just provide a brief update on the Remote Learning Assistance Grant Program that the board approved to aid school districts and their students with internet connectivity to help make remote learning more successful. Agreements for funding have been established with 8 districts. I've provided the districts with the contact information for the various internet providers in their area, both fixed line and cellular, so they can establish services with those companies that best suit their needs. As you recall, the districts will track their expenses through June 30th, and if there are any unused funds, we'll return those funds to the county. I wanted to mention that the districts have expressed gratitude for this assistance during this challenging time. That's my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Couple comments. Have any election-related bills been dropped yet?
There have been a number, and my hope, the ACO meeting was this morning, so my hope is at our next session, I'll give you an update on those election
Right.
related.
Is the census numbers, have the census numbers been given yet? No?
April.
Okay, so the redistricting process hasn't begun?
No, are you talking, first you were talking about elections bills? And
then, the census.
Okay, so now you're asking about redistricting, which is our local, it's our county responsibility. So there wouldn't be any legislation related to redistricting.
You'll be surprised.
Because we have to comply with federal law. So I've worked on the RFP. I just need to identify the date to actually publish it.
Right.
And then we'll bring that back to you as soon as possible.
So I just want you to keep an eye out for those things. Those are 2 things that are important during this year specifically. Yes, Supervisor Lyons.
But we're still waiting on an April release for the census.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, but does that mean that we have to wait until we know? I guess that's the question. It's a legislative issue because we're going to be involved in the redistricting process is going to be driven by census numbers, which I think will be off by a lot. So I don't know. I think the census is going to require some sort of intervention. During this last year, there was no way to conduct a regular census given the pandemic situation, the approach they took, especially in counties like Yuma County, where a lot of the responses weren't as strong, let's put it that way, as other counties where people responded remotely. I mean, I tell you personally, this is a personal experience that when I turned 65, and I will let everybody know I turned 65 last year, I became the most popular guy in the country. I received like 12 calls a day from different numbers that were all Medicaid related. So it was tough to find out last year what what those calls were about, so I refused most calls. I'm sure between them, there might have been a call from the census that I didn't take. And it's just, I think, a situation that didn't help Yuma County. This is a very difficult area to provide a good census for. It's never been, as far as I can remember, one where we were so happy with the census counts, we just decided not to do anything. It's always been most cities in the county, Somerton, San Luis, Welton, they would all complain that the numbers are too low, and then they have to argue the point. So I guess just keep an eye on the census counts and let us know as soon as you know, so that we can, if needed, take appropriate action. All right.
And so you're now eligible for the vaccine?
I'm eligible for the vaccine. Yeah. Yeah, that was a low blow. All right, so anything else for legislative issues? Those are state issues. Now, I do have to mention the fact that next month we have the NACO, National Association of Counties Legislative meeting in Washington, D.C., and we need to start prepping for it because we're going to have to do it remotely. That would probably be more on the scheduling or, the events calendar, current events. We'll take it up there. All right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is event calendar, current events. And here's where board members and county administrator will report on May's class events attended to be attended on behalf of the county, may present a brief summary of current events, and may update the schedule for future board supervisors meeting as appropriate. No legal action will be taken. Supervisor Porcias, this time wait a minute. Supervisor Pancrase, do you want to report anything?
Sure, I have a whole bunch. I attended the CSA Executive Board meeting, and then I attended the CSA Board of Directors meeting, and then I went to, let's see, I'm looking. I did the Zoom meeting with our representatives, and on Thursday the 28th, I went to AWC's second quarter providers meeting, which is Arizona at Work. And I attended the transportation meeting for the Chamber of Commerce and the board meeting for YMPO. And then I attended my board meeting for Hospice of Yuma. I attended the COVID-19 Zoom meeting with Tim Dunn, and I have to say that Jonathan did an excellent job of using some of his connections that he has to make sure that people know that Yuma County is here and that we're not getting enough vaccine. Thank you, Jonathan, for letting them know. So anyway, and with that, I'm done.
Supervisor Porcias.
I was just on the phone with that meeting that we had with the representatives last week, but other than that, and just been getting a lot of calls for the vaccine.
Oh, yeah, well.
So that's...
Supervisor Simmons.
Attended the Yuma County Design Team meeting.
Wow.
Also attended a poker run out in the Tacna area for a fundraiser for the Kiwanis in the park out there. Also in on the state representative meeting. Was on the line with the new group, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. We're working to put together, there's about 30, 35 people, I think, in that group. Took a tour of the wall down in the far southeast part of the county, everything kind of east of the Gila Mountains, and pretty interesting down there. You got a road, I don't know if you've ever been to Tule Wells, it's a cabin down there, but you could take an RV all the way down there now with the road that they've got plowed in.
Well, every time I look at the wall in San Luis and I see two walls, I think, well, how do we get from one wall to two walls? But that's a different story. We don't want to get into that.
But it was, like I said, it was interesting. Pretty area down there. You get down in the Cabeza Prieta and beautiful area.
Jonathan.
Participated in a couple of CSA calls as well as some additional onboarding. Number of calls with the health department and our county partners trying to sort out some of the issues that we have. Some additional training and onboarding, and keep going till all that's wrapped up.
Good. I don't want to add too many, compliments to Jonathan Lyons' plate because, but he somehow he ended up taking the lead on getting us as many vaccines from the state as possible, and he ended up in the middle of the firing line, which is normally what happens when you get involved in a situation like that. You're trying to help. You end up being the bad guy, which is, just the way it works. But thanks a lot for your efforts, and we do appreciate the
You're welcome.
connections that you utilize in behalf of Yuma County. We appreciate it. I think all the residents of Yuma County, if they knew, would appreciate it the same way.
Thank you.
Now, we had a legislative meeting with all our legislators this year, and the most encouraging part is they want to do it again, which I think is, to me, a sign of success, because otherwise, they would have just simply said, look, it's a waste of time or whatever, and would have simply said, well, we'll see you next year or something. But they all agreed that communications during these times are going to be critical, and especially for Yuma County. 2020 was a tough year, and 2021 doesn't look that different. So we will need all the help we can get. And in one of those, I think, weird coincidences, or, somehow they end up working, we do have a delegation that is, balanced out. So if they all work together, that means we have 6 people. If they work against each other, it means they neutralize each other. So in some ways, I think it works when we need something, that we have people in the right quote side, and it works when we need some pressure applied in the other side. So hopefully that balance works. It's worked in the past, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. In some ways, for some reasons, the delegations from Yuma County always end up in the leadership position. They always end up driving the process, which is really nice to be able to say that, because, I've been around for 20-some years, and names have changed. But the fact is, most of the time, the delegations that we send from Yuma County end up being very well positioned. No matter what happens in the legislature, they end up in the right committees, and they end up doing the right thing for us. And I think this one is no exception. Those people seem to have the benefit, even though some of them are from, Avondale or Buckeye or someplace out there. They do seem to remember they also represent Yuma, which is, I think, good thing for us. We had a meeting of the Greater Yuma Port Authority here on Monday morning, and I think that I need to start getting you guys ready, because there were a lot of developments happening in San Luis. There's been some snags in the financing of some of those projects out there, and it may end up at the end that the county may need to step up and assist that process to move forward. I don't have all the details, and I don't want to get into that, because it probably needs to be a board item where we have Susan, and we'll be ready to present something to you guys. But we're working on something with them. I also had a meeting of the a benefit team trust, and I can tell you right now, before you get it in the next meeting that we have a budget session, that this is not going to be one of those years where they say we have a 2% deficit, that we need to contribute to. This is going to be one of those years where the 7-8% type situation is going to happen. So not something to look forward to, because normally in the past years we've had very small, minute differences, and the recommendations have always been kind of in the range of 2, 3, 4%, and we could always eat them up with the reserves. This looks to me to be one of those years where, because of what's happening in the health field, everybody's being very conservative about what's going to happen, this next coming year. So don't expect it to be one of those, well, you guys, we can do this with the reserve type of situation. This is probably going to take a little more than that, meaning with that we may have to be ready to either contribute more as a county, or ask the participants in the health plan to contribute a little more of their own. It's not going to be one of those years that was easy. It was an easy decision for us, so it's going to be a little tougher than that. I also wanted to publicly comment, and I think that Supervisor Porches will second me on this. Appreciation for the county health department being being motivated to take their show on the road. They took it to San Luis, they took it to Summerton, and I'm sure they're going to start taking it to other places to make sure that the whole county is involved in this vaccination process, and not just the city of Yuma or portions of the foothills. The idea that the county is reaching out really helps to sell, for me, the fact that we're trying everything we possibly can to get those vaccines to those vulnerable populations, whether it be farm workers or winter residents or just people who are older than 65, regardless of whatever they are. And we have to admit that the system to get appointments is not working out for a lot of people. And so, and this is not being helped at all by the fact that we can't even make phone calls anymore. I think the system is back to just getting the website. And getting into a website, as you well know, can drop the website. I mean, it overwhelms the website. So the county's willingness to take the show on the road is really important to me, and I wanted to make sure that everybody that is listening to us, if you're listening to us, we want to emphasize the county health department and all supervisors are trying their best to make sure that the county gets as many vaccines as possible and that they're putting people's arms as quickly as possible. Having a 92% inoculation rate is extraordinary. It's not standard. This isn't, and this doesn't happen when county health department stays still. They happen when the county health department responds to the staff. And responds to the demand. So I wanted to take the opportunity to say it again. I am encouraged by their desire to make sure that many people get it as quickly as possible. I do understand we can't control some of the partners because some of them get their vaccines directly from the state or because they're not used to their very restrictive reporting requirements. But as soon as we get used to it, I'm sure we're going to end up to the point where we'll be able to prove to the state that we got our doses and the doses are being applied as fast as possible and that there's no need to reduce them, there's a need to increase them, actually. So that would be it.
Just one comment, Mr. Chair. I was just reading on some numbers that Teresa Bravo from Pima County sent. The crossing in Arizona from Mexico, last year there was 3.9 million pedestrians and 9.5 million cars that crossed into Arizona. But that's on the pedestrian side, it's a 45% decrease. That's a lot from the previous year, and 42% on the cars that cross. I mean, that just shows how much money we're losing as state of Arizona, that non-essential people that were crossing just to come and either purchase things here or come visiting, just, either way, putting gas, buying things, or, just staying in a hotel.
I didn't want to get into this situation because I have very strong feelings about it. I do not believe that any of these restrictions have had any impact whatsoever on the transmission rates, either in Mexico or here. So my belief is that these are decisions made by people in Mexico City or in Washington, D.C., who think that they can actually restrict the flow of a virus by restricting the flow of people, which we have known for years doesn't work. Virus or bacteria or whatever, we have, if we had $3.9 million, 3.9 million people last year crossing back and forth, and we have 2.5 million crossing this year, guess what? Unless you had no people crossing, that would be a restriction. But you can go to Mexico and come back at any time as long as you don't do it between 10 at night and 6 in the morning, which means that we can all go and come back at any time. If we restrict people who can't come in unless they have an essential, something to do here that is essential, you're only restricting 20%, 30% of the people. You're not restricting anyone that's a citizen, anyone that can be here on an appointment, or anybody that can cross. And that means to me that every morning, 12, 14,000 people cross the border to go to work in the fields. So what are you going to do about them? You can't restrict them. So, unfortunately, my belief, Supervisor Porches, is that this policy of restricting the flow on the border and discouraging people to come back and forth has only been an inconvenience for people like us or businesses in the border that rely on people coming over and shop. It's all it's been. I honestly believe that the government in Mexico thinks of this and laughs because they have no restrictions to get across. So, their people, their businesses are happy because people can't come and shop on this side. So they're staying in the Mexican side. So if you talk to anyone in government across the border, they're happy about the restrictions because all it does is it stops people from coming here. It doesn't stop people from going to Mexico. You can go to Mexico at any time just don't go between 10 and 6. But coming into the United States has become a chore. You go across the border and you better be ready to spend 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 hours in the line. And it's just a policy. It's not. I've been told that they're 100% staffing. So if they're 100% staffing and they have 8 lanes to allow people to cross on and use 3 or 4, that's just a policy decision. That is not a decision driven by infrastructure or staffing needs. It's just, they're just want to make it inconvenient, and they have achieved so. From the numbers we're getting, they have certainly achieved restricting people, but they certainly haven't achieved any success in restricting the virus. I mean, you know, their city and our cities here, the border. I don't know how many times I hear the ambulance in San Luis happening every day, but I hear it at least 2 or 3 times a day, picking up someone in the border that can be here, but is probably coming in an ambulance because they can't stay in the Mexican side. So, thank you for bringing that up, but no, you shouldn't have. It's just another grab station. Susan, before he brings up something else I get really wound up about, you go ahead and give us your report.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I attended the Arizona City County Management Association conference. Limited number of people in person, but we practiced all social distancing and wearing masks, and it was a very informative and educational conference. I also started my 2-year service on the board of directors for that organization. Our BRT, the budget review team, is planning for the budget retreat, and topics are being prepared now. Draft will be coming out to you soon for any additional topics you might want to cover.
What?
I attended the design team meeting for the alternatives to 197, and I also attended the YSIPTA board meeting. YSIPTA received about $7 million in additional CARES funding and was able to purchase a lot more much needed buses to replace a woefully old inventory of equipment. So we're very looking forward to those coming online very soon. That concludes my report.
When is the budget retreat?
February 9th.
Are we doing that on?
So it's not in the agenda?
It's being planned to do virtual only, and we're going to be doing a prep session at 1 o'clock with the chairman to see how that, we're going to use the webinar form of Zoom, which you probably have participated on if you've attended the CSA meetings by Zoom. They do it in a webinar format. It just makes it cleaner and easier instead of having all the faces on the screen at once, because we're going to have probably 60 people. It shows the presentation and then the person speaking. The board members will be able to unmute and talk. The attendees, like the rest of the staff, will open at the end for them to be able to unmute and ask questions or comments, but we want to make sure it's focused and well organized, because Zoom meetings, if they're not managed well, can get really out of control. So we're going to be doing a test version this afternoon, and we'll probably want to do some testing with each one of you individually to make sure you're comfortable with the Zoom approach and where you would like to participate from, so that we can make sure it's all set up and ready to go and works well for you. So we'll be in touch with you after we do our little test today at 1 o'clock.
I do not like Zoom meetings, so if your board members can be together for this retreat, I'd appreciate it.
We can only do in person or Zoom. We cannot do a combination of the two with this setup.
That's the problem. This setup has been this way for all 1 year, Susan, and I don't understand why we cannot all meet in one place. I mean, I do this in my office all the time. I have staff, 4 or 5 people, and we sit at a conference table and we have a meeting, and we have Zoom meetings with 5 or 6 people present. Why can't we do it here? It's been a question that I've had since this stuff began. I don't like. There's a reason why we have meetings like this, and it's because I don't really think that someone in the road or someone like Lynn can participate really the way that you could if you're present. So maybe this time I won't, get too long on I know who's going to be running the. Are we hosting the meeting? You see, Susan runs the meeting, and it's going to be tough. But we'll practice. But I can tell you,
our backup plan is to have it here with you and only the budget review team and everybody else watching it online, and we can send the presentations to them, because it's not easy to see when you're watching on television to see the screen.
Yeah. Well, this
is not a television, and it cannot be used as a television to have Zoom. So that's the problem with this room. But if you want to have it in person, it will be just you and the budget review team. Everybody else will be watching online. We can't do it another way. So
you make me feel right at home, like I have no authority.
I don't think we can actually have a conversation because it's not on the agenda.
Well, no, we're not we're discussing the presentations here. I mean, not the presentations, but the event. This is the event calendar. In the event, I guess, guys, unless I find another way to do this, it will be me with the review team and you guys someplace else. We're gonna try to figure out a way to make you participate. But if I can find a way for us to meet with the review team, I would pursue it. But right now, Susan is holding the levers. So we'll talk about it at 1. I will talk about it at 1, and I'll try to get it so that we can somehow. I just can't believe we can't get in a situation where, as a group, we can meet with somebody else on a Zoom call. Like I said, I do it in my office all the time. So I don't see why, technologically speaking, we can't get staff to get this room set up so we can have a group Zoom meeting. I know it goes against the technology. Zoom meeting is supposed to be like remote. You know, people are remote locations. I swim against the current on that one. Anyway, I'll see what I can do at 1 o'clock, and then I'll let you guys know. Okay?
I do feel the same. But my recommendation was, if the last 4 years that we've had the budget, at least that I've been there, it's the whole staff. The department heads are there, but a lot of the questions that they ask are for the budget team. I mean, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, no, that's what the budget. That's what the budget discussion.
I haven't gotten personally a question from a director during that session or that meeting. So maybe why don't they meet, and then we can have a meeting with just the budget team and be here. I mean, if we have a meeting right now with so many people,
I would prefer that as well.
I'm just saying that it's face to face. It's more you hear. That's how I feel.
Okay, so.
If it's possible.
Right, so it sounds like it would be a regular board meeting setup.
With the budget review team, the department heads present, and they can come over, make their statement, or the review team be here and they can make their statements. And we can ask them questions, they can ask us questions, as long as we follow protocol, which is to give them proper distancing and so forth. Look, I appreciate the fact you've gotten really good at Zoom, because you got really good at Zoom. I just resist that. We're sort of politicians. We like the seeing, touching thing. We like the seeing, touching thing. Zoom has never been close to my heart. I do it when I have to, and if I don't have to, I won't do it. So maybe at 1 o'clock we can talk about maybe setting something up that can work, that it posted, because this is not in the agenda, and I'll discuss it individually. I'll try to get it done.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Susan, anything else? No? Thank you. So we get out and do it. Yeah, that didn't work out. All right, so the attorney's looking at me. Is there anything else in the agenda? No, if not, then this concludes this meeting this morning. Thank you very much.